Somewhere inside a gate in the demon realm, a small snake is squaring up against 3 radishes, and there is an audience. The snake is named Sasa. The radishes are mandrakes, and up on the sidelines 2 winged siblings are calling the fight like it is a title bout, because Jia wants to know who takes it this time, and her brother tells her the outcome is obvious. She admits the action is quite fierce today though. Then the mandrakes start throwing what Bayom identifies as a Superman punch. Sasa dodges it, the leaf still lands, and the snake bursts into tears and runs away. Bayom announces that the mandrake wins again, which brings the record to 99 wins out of 99 matches. Jia, being generous, says Sasa was not bad either. Meanwhile, the man who owns all of these creatures picks up his mandrake and tells him he has another big fight today. Then he puts a little moisturizer on his fingers and works it into the radish, and spends a moment genuinely wondering why he loves moisturizer this much. Over at the house, Kim Nari is calling out to her uncle asking how much longer she has to wait, because she is already extremely hungry, and Nam Ji Seok tells her he is nearly finished, and that she is going to love this one. She brings him a basket of eggs, and says it would be a shame not to add these. He agrees completely, cracks them in, and gets them into the pan. Then he plates everything up and Nari says they need to eat right now, and Ji Seok tells her there is one final step, and that step is sesame seeds. Then they call everybody to the table, and once the whole household is assembled he proudly announces today's menu, which is his special sauce-based dish, kimchi fried rice. Nari tries it and declares it unbelievably delicious. Ji Seok tells her, beaming, that there is more so she should go straight in for seconds. Then Jia tastes it and says he is a good cook. The man is instantly, catastrophically embarrassed, and says he is honored that even she likes it. And while all of this is happening, the protagonist tastes the food with his mandrake already asleep on him, and everybody settles in to eat, and Ji Seok goes sprinting around the table to put another portion in front of Jia specifically. Watching that, our boy smiles and thinks that life in the demon realm is honestly not so bad. Now hold that image, because you should know who is sitting at that table. He was kidnapped out of the slums as a child, cut apart and rebuilt into a chimera. He was used as a living weapon for decades, until his mind started coming apart from the inside. Then he stopped being useful, and the people who owned him disposed of him like a broken tool. Then, instead of dying, he came back as a human, still carrying every piece of the monster they made. And with all of that power, and every reason in the world to go back and burn something down, what he did instead was build a house next to a waterfall, make friends, and grow radishes. Peace does not get handed to anybody. He built it, and he enjoys it to the absolute fullest, which does not mean the people who made him get to sleep well, because at one point, in a shabby alchemy shop down in the slums, an executive director from the Golden City walks in and starts pitching him an exclusive contract with an advance bonus and tax relief, and the whole time our boy is not listening to a single word of it. He is looking at the wart on the man's nose. Then he asks him what his connection is to An Bak Diok, and the man laughs, delighted, because that is his grandfather, honorary recipient of the World Gold Medal, a man who donated his fortune to the families of gate victims and collected a gold peace prize for it. What this idiot does not know is who he is talking to. He does not know that the man across from him spent his childhood on the other end of that grandfather's whip. He does not know that the same grandfather used to laugh and tell a 9-year-old chimera to beg mommy to come save him. And he definitely does not know that the reason a decorated humanitarian went out of a window years ago is standing 3 feet away, wearing monster hide, asking about a wart. He is about to find out. To understand how a chimera hunter ended up moisturizing a radish at a breakfast table, we have to go back to the day the gates opened. Monsters come pouring out of them, and the place they crawl out of eventually gets a name that sticks, the demon realm. Humanity gets exactly one lucky break in the whole disaster, because a small number of people wake up with mana in their bodies and abilities nobody can explain, and those people become hunters. Thanks to them, the counterattack finally starts. Cities get rebuilt. Most of the old problems stay exactly where they were, but at least some people get to have a boring, ordinary life again, and boring is worth an enormous amount once you have seen the alternative. The problem is, awakened hunters are rare and monsters are not. There are nowhere near enough people to hold a line that never stops moving. So humanity solves the shortage the way humanity always solves a shortage. It starts manufacturing more. That is where the chimera hunters come from. Artificial life, assembled out of the corpses of death row inmates, animal parts, minerals dug out of the gates, and monster cells folded into the mix. The mass production of chimera hunters gets celebrated as the perfect marriage between the scientific community and the hunter community. Hunter mortality drops off a cliff. Countless lives get saved. On paper, the world is walking steadily back toward its old glory. Nobody spends much time asking what it feels like to be the thing doing the saving. For that, we go to high-class chimera storage facility number B18, a few decades back. Two scientists come down into the room where the chimeras are kept, and one of them puts a flashlight on the unit in front of him and asks whether that arm is rotting. His colleague tells him not to let it get close, then immediately assures him everything is fine because the brain is damaged. It does not move without an order. So the first one takes a longer look at the thing standing there, sees a right arm crushed into ruin, wonders whether that is a side effect from the experiments, and asks why anyone would be afraid of something that can barely see. The answer he gets is that they should just move on. They are getting rid of it anyway. Then they go upstairs and file the report. Chimera number 17 is no longer useful. The body is too far gone. Any other chimera in that condition would already be dead. The lab director asks how much longer it can hold out, and the estimate he gets is a month at most. So he gives the order. Assign it to the gate blockade operation. Put it on rear guard while the hunters pull back, and do not give it the order to return. Sometime later, in the Rocky Mountain region of the Demon Realm, that same broken unit is standing in the middle of a demon wave and taking it apart. It cuts a flying demon out of the sky and is already moving toward the next one before the body lands. It leaps to a height a human body has no business reaching and comes down through the target, splitting it into pieces. Then it builds a ball of magic in one hand and lets it go, and everything in the path of that thing stops existing. The adventurers watching from a safe distance are having a great time. They cannot believe how many monsters just died in a single blow. Then again, what else would you expect from an S-class chimera hunter? One of them mentions almost as an afterthought that there is still no sign of the gate closing. Another one tells him not to worry about it. It does not matter how many monsters come out of that hole, because as long as they have this chimera, they hold. All the humans have to do is clean up whatever wanders past. Eventually, the red gate starts to fade, which is the signal to leave. They call the retreat and head for the exit. Number 17 keeps fighting. One of the adventurers asks whether they are taking him along, and the answer comes back immediately. Forget it. They were told not to bring him back. His lifespan is almost up anyway. She says it out loud that she feels uneasy about this. If it were not for him, the damage today would have been colossal. Her colleague asks why she is spending energy on pointless worry, because she knows perfectly well what a chimera is. They are practically inanimate. They follow their master's orders and nothing else. They are monsters. What she does not know is that the inanimate thing she is walking away from is, at that exact moment, replaying an order inside its own head. His job is to protect the hunter's rear. Does he understand? Nothing more than that is required, which means that once the mission is complete, he does not need to return. He looks at a field with no monsters left standing on it, and at his own body torn open, and reaches the only conclusion available to him. Mission complete. Return not permitted. The results of Chimera Hunter number 17's final mission are recorded as follows. Hunter deaths, 0. Total monsters destroyed, 1,823. And then, in the last moments, something surfaces that no report ever wrote down. He was human once. He was taken at 9 years old. That one memory drags the rest of them up with it, and his entire life plays out in front of him. And the cruelest detail is that the brain doing the watching is too damaged to understand what any of it means. He simply observes it, calmly, like footage of somebody else. 79 years ago in an orphanage in District 13, his father holds him for the first time. 70 years ago, that same man is scolding him for hitting a friend with a rock. Not long after, the people raising him tell him they cannot allow him to live there anymore, and they put him out. Then the scientists find him. They take him in. They start putting genes into his body. They give him the number 17 and inject S+ silkworm larval cells, and there are no side effects at all. One of them reports that a special ability has appeared while the human form and the personality are both still intact, almost as if the subject has some kind of unique constitution. The director hears that and gives the only instruction he is ever going to give: keep implanting variants until they see a reaction. 64 years ago, the results arrive and he becomes monstrously powerful, so they start using him as a weapon against demons. 59 years ago, standing over a field of corpses in the middle of another battle, he stops and wonders why he is here, and what he just did. The lab director walks over and asks him why he stopped. Is his memory getting jumbled? The side effects have finally started. 54 years ago, a scientist writes down that after 15 years of work and more than 500 types of monster cells, the subject's rank has climbed to at least S, a level that is effectively impossible to measure. Number 17 is the greatest success their lab has ever produced. 20 years ago, he loses his human shape completely, and they start feeding him meat like an animal. 3 days ago, his last battle. 527 types of monster cells, total, and that is where the story is supposed to end. Except after that final battle, his bones and his muscles start fusing back together, and they keep going until the shape they end up in is a human one. Chimera Hunter number 17 is reborn, and the thing standing there is a man. He looks down at his hands, notices the claws still coming out of them, and decides he cannot exactly call himself completely human, seeing as he is still carrying every ability those cells gave him. It also feels like it has been a very long time. Then he works through what happened to him, and the answer he lands on is an immortal type ability, the kind that revives its host up to 3 times as long as the core is not destroyed. The only issue is that humans and immortal cells are not supposed to be able to fuse in the first place. Whatever the explanation, his body is clearly back at peak condition, and the likeliest reason is that the side effects of the experiment finally wore off because his mind had been clouded from the moment he started experiencing them, and every order engraved into him to stop him escaping or disobeying is gone. The experiment number on his wrist is gone too. The lab is done with him. They threw him away, which means he has nothing to do with them anymore. So if the life of number 17 is over, the real question is whether he can live as a human instead. Which brings up an awkward detail because 17 was a random number a lab assigned to him. He had a name before that. He remembers his father telling him he was a bit of a psychopath as a kid, or more accurately, that he had a rude personality. And then telling him to try living a life where he consciously helps people, to be someone who helps a lot of them. Standing there, our boy laughs at it. An orphan out of the slums, helping people, the words are completely meaningless. His name is Do-woon. So what now? Revenge is the obvious answer, except revenge needs a target you can point at, and honestly all of it feels like it happened a very long time ago. The fire is just not there the way it used to be. He is not going back to the human world right now either. If he lives long enough he will run into them one day, and he can think about it then. For the moment he settles on something much smaller. How about living like a human a little? Starting with a genuinely tragic question. When was the last time he wore clothes? So he walks to a pond and starts thinking about what to make them out of. The material has to be durable. He needs to look around. And then, right in front of him, he finds a demon corpse. He figures there was a territorial dispute here. The thing was strong. There are no serious wounds on it, so most likely it went down to poison. Great, he needs the skin. He grows a blade straight out of his own hand, decides that will make the job easier, and pulls up whatever the lab drilled into him about this. Open the belly in one clean line, then work down the limbs, something like that, probably. He decides to just try it. Halfway through the butchering, a poisonous aura starts coming off the corpse. Our boy takes precisely 0 damage from it and complains that it smells bad, and now he is going to have to wash this. He gets the hide off in one piece and admits that, for a first attempt, it is not bad at all. Then he washes it, and the moment he does, the whole thing goes rigid. He looks at it, notes that it used to look soft, and wonders if that is a monster hide thing. It is a very hard material now, but not in the way a metal plate is hard. And when a hide behaves like that, there is exactly one method for processing it. So he lays it out flat on the grass and starts punching it. He keeps punching it until it goes soft again, which it does, then cuts the pieces down to roughly the size he thinks he needs, punches the holes where they have to go, and puts together an outfit. He looks it over, notices the poison did not fully wash out, and decides he is tired of dealing with this and will just wear it like that. Meanwhile, the monster behind him wakes up. The corpse he skinned is standing there, alive, squealing about the fact that it currently has no hide. Our boy turns around and asks, genuinely surprised, "Wait, it is not dead?" He definitely saw rigor mortis on that thing. He wonders whether he imagined it, or whether it understands what he is saying. Then he does the math, and the math says that if it survived rigor mortis, it must be immortal too. The old version of him would have finished it without a second thought, because that was the job. But it is already weak, and it is not a threat, and there is no reason to kill it. So he smiles and tells it they both got lucky. They were both handed a second life, so they should make the most of it. And if fate is feeling generous, they will meet again. Then he walks off to solve the next problem, because clothes are handled and now he needs a house. House hunting attempt number 1 is a cave, and it lasts about 4 seconds, because a giant centipede comes straight at him the moment he steps inside. He looks around with a completely flat expression, comments that it is too dark in here, removes the centipede's head with a wave of his hand, and rules the place unsuitable. Attempt number 2 takes him into winter, where he walks past frozen monster corpses and decides food would be too difficult to find out here, also unsuitable. He keeps going, place after place, until he finds it. A rocky area with a waterfall coming down into a wide, clear pool, and he stands there thinking he never would have imagined the demon realm could look like this. He jumps down for a closer look. The water is clean and absolutely full of fish. Then piranhas start launching themselves out of it, all teeth and bad intentions. He thinks they look delicious. Catch one, grill it, and it is basically camping. And if there is a natural fish farm sitting right there, then building a house next to it is a great idea. Flowers grow here. The air is clean. This is Do-woon's house now, and it suits him. Meanwhile, out in one of the clearings of the demon realm, a gate opens, and a robot jumps out of it. Hold that thought. Back at the waterfall, construction begins, and step 1 is a plot of land. He waves a hand and a large number of trees stop being upright. That should be enough space for a house. Now he needs timber in decent condition, and once he has collected enough of it, he decides that will do. Then he looks at the ground and asks himself whether it is just him, or whether the surface is too uneven. He decides to fix it. Another wave of the hand takes out every stump and every blade of grass at once and leaves behind a perfectly level plot. And then he starts building, and while he is working, he notices something. He is moving his arms and legs exactly the way his heart tells him to. He wonders what that is called. Free will, maybe. Whatever it is fun. Possibly because this is the first house he has has ever built for himself. Posts in each corner, then the floor goes down, and then he realizes he needs walls. He has no nails, so he substitutes monster snail slime, because once that hardens it is as strong as stone and reasonably waterproof. For the finishing touch he needs a roof, so he wraps the ceiling in silkworm cocoon silk. Then he stands back, looks at the horror he has produced, and declares it very cozy. He likes it, but something is missing. He can feel that something is missing. What did a normal human house look like? Again, he digs through the lessons they gave him in the lab, and remembers that in the educational videos, people grew things in a garden. A regular dog is obviously not happening in the demon realm, but a vegetable garden might work. If he can work out what actually grows out here, then it clicks. There are snowy mountains nearby. Maybe he should plant a mandrake. So he heads for the snowy mountains, because a mandrake's habitat is the very peak, where the mana is thickest. On the way up he notes that there is a lot of snow here, which is exactly what you would want from a mountain called Snowy. It was snowing the day the lab took him too. It was so cold that year that he was actually glad they took him. Which, now that he thinks about it, is one of the advantages of becoming a chimera. He never has to worry about freezing to death or starving to death again. The mana density tells him he is nearly there. The snowstorm dies down, and then he finds what he came for, and admits that fortunately the search was not wasted. Now, mandrakes are stress-sensitive monsters. Think sunfish. The smallest change in their environment can kill them outright, so if he is going to relocate any of them, the younger and more adaptable ones are the better bet. He pulls the first sprout out of the ground and braces for the screaming hands, ready to cover his ears. They do not scream. They are asleep. They make small strange noises instead, and our boy crouches there completely puzzled, trying to work out what they are saying in their sleep. Here is why. The famous mandrake scream only happens when people cultivate them artificially. In a world with no mana, under extreme stress, a mandrake that gets ripped out of the ground screams and dies. Out here in the demon realm, none of that applies. What he cannot explain is the total lack of resistance. They should be fighting desperately to get away from him, unless they have decided he counts as one of their own, which is not impossible, considering mandrake cells went into his body too. Either way, the important thing is that they are not stressed. He gathers a few and starts making plans, because later on when they are older, he can ask them for root cuttings and make tea. Then he remembers that mandrake fruit turns extremely toxic if you harvest it by force, so he is going to have to work on his persuasion skills. Then he hears fighting somewhere below him. Hunters, apparently. He has no idea what would bring anybody up a mountain this dangerous, but as long as they are here, maybe he should go pick up a gate stone. Down the slope, the hunters in question are not having a productive day. Kim Tae-hoon, D-rank, is shouting that the others used them as bait and ran. His partner, Oh Sung-ju, tells him to pull himself together, because the monsters are closing again. Sung-ju throws up a barrier. The attacks come down on it, and the shield starts breaking apart almost immediately. Tae-hoon says he should have just taken a part-time job. Why did he ever volunteer to go find a chimera? The barrier collapses. Then something lands between them and the monsters hard enough to blow smoke across the entire slope, and Tae-hoon, staring at the shape standing inside it, asks whether that is a human. Our boy glances over at a snow rabbit and remarks that it has been a while. Every monster on that slope turns around and leaves. Not fights and loses. Leaves. Sung-ju watches B-class monsters running for their lives purely because of the aura coming off this guy, and asks whether that is really happening. Tae-hoon gets up, thanks him for the save, introduces himself and asks if he can get a name. The MC looks around and says his name is Do-woon. Nobody has ever heard of him. Also, what is he wearing? Maybe some kind of reclusive hunter. Then, Do-woon asks the obvious question, which is what they are doing up here, because they look like D-class hunters who have no idea how dangerous a snowy mountain is. Tae-hoon answers honestly, money. They were sent to capture a chimera, and the reward is enormous. According to the scientist, one of the test subjects escaped the lab, and it went through a gate on the way out. A mechanized creature, mechanized, so they are not looking for him. Good. He will take a gate stone and go. Then he asks where their gear is, since surely they did not walk into the demon realm empty-handed. No gate stone either. Sung-ju tells him the rest of the team took everything and ran. It was planned from the start. He should have known something was wrong the moment a B-class hunter offered to join a D-ranked team. Do-woon asks whether anybody here has a gate stone. Tae-hoon asks whether he is planning on going back, and then tries to make him understand something. They are at their limit. Do-woon knows what mana poisoning does. A hunter can only survive in the demon realm for so long depending on how far they have awakened, and if they do not get back to the human world and clear the mana out of their bodies, they die. Tae-hoon asks whether he can take them with him. Sung-ju has a pregnant wife waiting at home, and that is the reason he is begging a stranger for a favor. And then our boy's head turns because he senses something. Found them. He leaps, and he is gone. And the last thing left on that slope is 2D rank hunters screaming his name, asking where he is going, begging him to take them along. Meanwhile, the rest of that team, the ones who took the gear and ran, have spotted their target. The escaped chimera is standing on the edge of a cliff, and one of them shouts that this is their chance. Kill it fast, everyone attack at once. The robot turns around. It informs them that this place seems dangerous to it, and dangerous things must be destroyed. Do-woon arrives roughly 1 minute later, which is 1 minute too late. He looks at the bloodstains and the churned ground and reads the scene. All the hunters have already run. They even left their belongings behind. Then he finds something in the mess that he was not expecting. Tracks belonging to a child, and tracks belonging to an animal. And whatever fought here was changing its shape while it did it. He thinks back to what Tae-hoon told him, and the pieces line up. That chimera is built out of liquid metal, so it can change its appearance however it likes. The catch is that the materials are rare, so they had to build it small. Roughly the size of a child, or a dog. Which means a thing the size of a large dog just went through 5 B-rank hunters by itself. Our boy smiles at that. Honestly, he is impressed. Meanwhile, the 2 hunters he left standing in the snow are not doing well. Sungju is sitting against a tree, and he says he thinks he is done. His whole body is saturated with demonic energy now. Tae-hoon tells him to stop talking like that. Does he not remember his baby is due in a month? Sungju coughs up blood and says that when Tae-hoon gets back, he should tell his wife he is sorry. Tae-hoon starts screaming at him to hold on a little longer. Miracles happen. They do, right? And then the MC walks up carrying a backpack that used to belong to one of the men who abandoned them. Tae-hoon runs at him, drops to his knees and starts begging. Our boy looks down at this and asks what is happening. Oh, right. They mentioned they had no gatestone. Tae-hoon spells it out for him, because in the lawless demon realm, a hunter who loses his gatestone is finished, and both of them know it. So he offers everything they have, 2 checks for 10 million won each, the money they took as payment for their own lives, and asks him to please sell them 1 gatestone. If they do not go back now, they die here. Do-woon thinks it over from an angle nobody in that clearing was expecting. He has nowhere to spend money out here anyway, and he will have money later, once he goes back to the human world. So he hands the gatestones over and a portal opens on the spot. Tae-hoon bows his head and tells him he will never forget this. He gets Sungju up on his feet, because if they hurry, they might actually live. Then our boy looks at the checks in his hand and asks a completely innocent question. A gatestone usually runs about 200,000 won in the human world, right? Half carrying his partner, Tae-hoon corrects him. Not anymore. It goes for 1 million now. Why? Do-woon puts a hand on his shoulder and says he feels like he took too much, so he is going to give them their change. And then he starts pouring mana into both of them. Tae-hoon's brain immediately files this under ways to die, because releasing mana into another hunter is something even A-rank hunters avoid. If one person's mana collides and tangles with another person's, the mana core breaks and both of them die. That is the rule. He is watching this happen to himself and thinking they are absolutely definitely about to die. But the real surprise comes a couple of seconds later, when the pain stops, strength comes back into his body, and he stares at his own hands and says out loud that the demonic energy is gone, cleaned out. Sungju grabs his partner and shouts that they are alive. Our boy says that is his cue and turns to leave. Tae-hoon goes down on his knees again and starts bowing and thanking him, while the part of his mind that still works keeps circling the same impossible sentence. He purged demonic energy by releasing mana. That cannot be done without a monstrous amount of it. What is this guy? Then we go back to the waterfall, where Do-woon returns to his almost finished home and notes with real satisfaction that nobody came here while he was out. He even picked up some unexpected income. Good walk. At which point the mandrakes start making noises and wilting. He asks whether the leaves are drooping because of the long trip, sticks the sprouts into the ground, and asks himself whether that will do it. Then he looks at their faces. The mandrakes are displeased. The mandrakes look frankly miserable. He runs through possible reasons. Forced relocation, hungry after being moved without soil, then maybe mana. Mandrakes usually like mana, so he pushes a finger into the dirt and feeds a small amount straight into their roots, and the entire crop instantly cheers up. Right about then he feels a presence and wonders whether it is the creature those hunters were chasing. What does it want from him? Well, if it has business with him, it can come over. He is correct, obviously. The robot is sitting in the bushes. Inside the house, our boy stuffs the checks into the wall, on the logic that he will leave the money there because he will need it later. Then he starts unpacking, and the backpack turns out to be a jackpot. A portable stove and a set of pots, which are the essentials for cooking outdoors, hiking, camping, fishing, all of that. 8 gate stones, which allow free travel between the human world and the demon realm. A change of clothes contaminated with pollen, so those need washing. And finally 2 sleeping bags and a blanket, for a warm night's sleep. He notes that they were very well prepared. Good for him. Then at the very bottom of the bag, he finds ramen. The last time he ate ramen, he was a child living in an orphanage. He is hungry. This will do nicely as a snack, and he decides to try making it. According to the recipe, step 1 is 500 milliliters of water in a pot. So he walks to the pond, where the piranhas immediately launch themselves at him. He neutralizes them without breaking stride, and observes that people usually add extra ingredients to ramen. It would taste better with fish. Step 2 is things like eggs and green onions. So he climbs a tree, finds capsules with bird embryos inside them, and reasons that since those are technically caviar, they should work as an egg substitute. Then he picks some tree leaves because green onions do not grow out here and these look close enough. All ingredients acquired. Time to head back. Watching all of this from the bushes, the robot is extremely hungry and wants to know what he is cooking. Back at the house, the pot goes on the portable stove, and our boy notes that the instructions never actually say when to add the fish, so he is just going to boil it with the noodles. A smell begins to spread across the clearing. It is not a good smell. He wonders whether ramen normally smells like this. He genuinely cannot remember. The robot, sitting in that smell, decides it is hungry too. And it has a plan, because it observed something useful back in the lab. People like dogs, so it instantly turns into a dog with a limp in its left leg, on the theory that people help you when they feel sorry for you. What the robot does not know is that our boy clocked it the moment it moved. Mechanized creature, been following him for a while, turned into a dog to lower his guard and faked an injury to farm sympathy. Judging by the execution, it is very young and completely clueless, which raises a genuinely interesting question, because how did something like that escape a lab and make it all the way out here? He asks if it wants some. The dog barks happily. So the protagonist plates up 2 servings of the least appetizing ramen ever produced, and they eat. And the taste is exactly like his childhood. Do-woon disappears so far into the memory of eating ramen at 7 years old that he stops noticing the smell entirely. After the meal, he tells his guests that if it is finished, it can go, because he still has cleaning to do. The robot starts walking away, limping on its right leg. Our boy smiles and asks, "Isn't that right?" It was limping on the left one. The robot freezes in absolute terror, then hurriedly switches the limp back to the correct leg. Cleanup done. He heads to the pond and announces that the dishes are washed, so now it is laundry time. He does not remember much about pollen, but he cannot keep walking around in the same hide forever. He is not a caveman. He does think it through first, noting that if he hits too hard the clothes might tear, so he needs to be careful. Then he tries to beat the pollen out of them, and hits far too hard. He looks at the wreckage and says, a little deflated, that it is fine, he has more. He glances over at the robot and wonders whether it has turned to stone now. Also, why does this thing keep following him? Through dinner, through the dishes, even while he was admiring the little forsythia-looking flowers, it kept coming closer and changing its appearance and doing absolutely nothing else. Then a bee attacks it. The creature that solo cleared 5 B-rank hunters immediately drops its disguise, reverts to its original form, and runs from the insect. Our boy watches this and works out that its mental age is probably under 5. The speech is slurred too, and he knows why. Forcing knowledge into young chimeras leaves that side effect. He finally finishes the washing and admits that laundry is much harder than he expected, but at least he kept one item intact. The t-shirt is a bit small on him, but he will hang it up for now. Then he goes off to check on the mandrakes. The strange part is what happens the second he leaves, because the robot drops its form, walks over to the hanger, and puts on the wet t-shirt. The gentleman also wears clothes, and now it wears clothes. So these clothes belong to it, and then it takes the shape of a little girl. Over at the garden, the MC finds his mandrakes unwell again, and asks why this keeps happening to them. Leaves still withering, roots drying out. It makes no sense, because he pulled every weed when he plowed the field. So he goes into the ground with a pickaxe, finds monster worms living in the soil, and realizes the dirt needs proper cultivation. They nearly died because of his mistake. While he is at it, he decides to put in a real vegetable garden, roughly the size of his house. That should be enough, right? At which point, a small girl walks up to him and says hello. Our boy notes that it is a girl this time, and that it is finally talking to him. He says hello back, mildly surprised. She points at the only building for kilometers and asks if this is his house. He confirms it proudly. Then she asks if that makes him a local, and he decides he is going to have some fun with this. He says yes, and asks which tribe she is from. She starts inventing on the spot. She traveled a very long way, through the waterfall, from somewhere extremely far, so far that he would never be able to find it. So Do-woon asks whether, given that it is near the waterfall, she might be from the coconut tribe. She nods enthusiastically. Yes, that one. Then he notices her clothes look suspiciously similar to his. She explains that in her tribe, whoever takes something first is the owner. So these are her clothes now. He tells her she can keep it. So what brings the coconut tribe out here? She says she was thrown out of the tribe, and that leads to her one request. She wants to live here too. There are no bugs here and there is a house here, so she feels safe. Those are her reasons. She hopes he will allow it. Our boy asks himself whether she really just needs somewhere to rest. Then he agrees, with the condition that if she is staying, she takes on part of the work. She agrees instantly and asks what to do. He says the garden comes first. Could she help with that? He needs a new home for the mandrakes. She grabs the tool out of his hands and tells him to leave it to her, because she is confident in her strength. Then she plows the entire plot at a speed no human child has ever managed. Watching this, the protagonist observes that she is not even attempting to hide what she is. Or, possibly, she spent her entire life inside a lab and has genuinely no idea what a normal child can do. He asks for her name and offers his own first, Do-woon. The girl considers it, decides she does not have a name and resolves to make one up, something like that beautiful flower she saw recently. After a moment of thought, she announces that her name is Kim Nari. Our boy very slowly asks whether her name is Forsythia. She finishes the plot and gets it into good condition, and he looks at his mandrake standing there radiating joy and admits he should have plowed this field a lot earlier. Then he notices Nari is crying, quietly, without making a sound. He asks her why, and she says the mandrakes remind her of her friends. And that lands somewhere heavy, because he knows exactly what those laboratory walls contain, and creatures like these are not in them. Then a dark aura rolls in over the clearing with noises attached, and Nari drops to the ground and starts sobbing. He tells her not to be scared. It is just monsters hunting each other. She tells him about something she passed on her way in. There was a monster shaped a bit like a chicken, and it looked like several others had it surrounded. He says that sounds about right. She thinks it was in pain. There were bite marks on it. Do-woon tells her the truth. It will be eaten soon. This is the demon realm. Then he asks whether maybe she wants to help it. She grabs her own head and says she cannot save monsters. And our boy reads that correctly because that is not an opinion, that is brainwashing side effects, and she cannot act on her own will yet. He wants to help her past it, but he does not want it to come out sounding like an order, so he phrases it as an observation. If she helped, it might survive. Does she want to go take a look? Nari is gone before he finishes, moving at a speed that leaves a line in the air, calling back that she will be right there. She arrives to find insect monsters swarming a chick, and she goes through them like a wrecking ball, screaming at them to stop torturing him, because she is going to save him, and while she does it, her own memories come up. Other hunters mocking her, a crowd of them beating her, telling each other that everyone would be better off if she were not here. And all she ever asked back then was why it was like this. She was only doing what she was told. She tears the rest of the swarm apart and shouts that it is wrong for a crowd to attack one. Then she comes back with the chick in her arms, panicking, asking what she should do because he is not waking up. Do-woon tells her to calm down first. Then he looks at the chicken and thinks about a certain monster he skinned recently and asks whether they have met before. He takes the patient and finds no fatal injuries, which is a relief. Then he reads the energy, because every monster's energy carries its own story, and this one is unmistakable. Smaller now, brighter in color, still exactly the same immortal type monster. But why did he shrink? Does he heal differently than he used to? Nari asks whether he is dying. He tells her no, the guy is just hungry. He is probably too small to find food on his own now. He fed him some mana, so if they leave him alone, he will heal by himself. But Nari's memories are still running, and she says that if they leave him, he will die. Also, his limbs remind her of rice cakes. So can she adopt him? She wants to take care of him. She will train him and feed him. Our boy smiles and points out that he is going to grow big. She says she will feed him little by little. He agrees and tells her to do whatever she wants. Maybe the thing will even guard the yard. At which point the chick wakes up, sees the man holding him, and furiously announces that this is the guy who skinned him. Nari cheers that he is awake. The chick, staring at a human child standing in the demon realm, asks what in the world is going on. And the MC, watching all of this, stops and asks himself a question. Wait, does he actually understand what that thing is saying? Later, the girl has the chick wrapped head to toe in bandages and declares the recovery complete. Then she decides he needs a name, and since he sounds a bit like a penguin, she suggests Goo. Do-woon says that is not a bad name. The chick furiously asks why she is picking a name for him when he already has one. Nari, understanding none of this, concludes he must be thirsty and pours water on him. He keeps making strange noises, so, logically, more water. He puffs up like a pufferfish. Lying flat on the table, Goo asks whether she could possibly stop pouring water into him. Our boy works out that Nari cannot understand a word and tells her to hold off on the water for now. She decides the patient must be hungry instead and runs off to find food. Meanwhile, construction continues. He takes some logs and starts sawing them into shelves, and the logs snap. He asks what went wrong, because this is exactly what he did when he made the table and the chairs. Goo, watching from the sidelines, points out that the wood is a different color. The wood he used before was coniferous. Do-woon asks whether strength depends on the type. Goo confirms it and asks whether he seriously did not know that. So the protagonist asks which color means the strongest wood, and Goo says obviously red. Then Goo stops. Wait, does this human actually understand him? That is not possible. Just in case, he will take a quick look inside the guy's head. He fires off a mind-reading skill. Then comes the shock because it bounces, and the human, radiating an aura that suddenly fills the entire clearing, remarks that he has looked everywhere and still has not found a redwood tree, so maybe it grows in a different area. Goo, now extremely nervous, points out that he just blocked a mind-reading attempt, which is simply impossible, and also that he can apparently understand him. Our boy corrects the wording. It would be more accurate to say he can hear his thoughts, translated into human language. Then he flips it around, because is it not much stranger that a monster can understand human speech in the first place? He decides Gu must be one of those rare intelligent monsters. He has only ever heard about them, never met one until now. Then he asks the question he has been sitting on. They have met before, haven't they? Gu agrees and adds that, honestly, he had been hoping to meet again. Do-woon asks why. The chick says it does not matter why. The man saved his life, and he promised himself that if he ever ran into him again, he would repay it. Our boy puts the last piece in place, because he took the poison off along with the skin, and the core stayed intact, and that is the entire reason this thing survived at all. He says that is great news, so would Gu help him with something? Gu asks whether he means right now. Then he tears his own bandages off, agrees, and tells him to follow because he knows where the red trees grow. And that is exactly when it goes wrong, because on the other side of the clearing, Nari is being hunted by a man in a wig. The hunter is named Nam Ji Seok, and the girl is running from him in genuine terror, screaming that she does not want to go back to the lab. He detonates something directly in front of her, and the blast puts her on the ground. She curls up. They are from the lab. They came for her. What is she supposed to do? She hates fire. Fire scares her. Ji-seok checks the radar in his hand and confirms it is the mechanized creature, and that it really does change shape freely. He is not especially thrilled about attacking something shaped like a child, but she needs to understand that this is a matter of life and death for him too. He winds up a serious attack and tells her this is the end. And then Do-woon is standing in front of her, holding the whole thing off, saying that all he wanted to do today was finish the shelf and eat. Gu says the trees can wait, but first they should probably deal with this. Our boy has already noticed the important detail, because Nari is afraid of fire, and she does not look okay at all. So he says the fire goes out first. Gu agrees and asks what kind of bastard hurts a child. Ji-seok, meanwhile, looks at the guy dressed in monster hide and comments that he is acting like a caveman, and asks where he is even from. He assumes this is another competitor here for the mechanized creature, and since he is short on time, he generously suggests the caveman leave while he still can. Do-woon tells him he talks too much. That sets him off, and he starts throwing fire, screaming that this stubborn idiot should stop ruining a job that is nearly finished and get out. Our boy raises one finger. The rock face directly above the hunter detonates, and the entire thing comes down on top of him. Later, once the fire is out, he crouches down next to the girl and asks how she is feeling. Nari says she is fine. He saved her from the fire. He gives her the only piece of advice he has. When the fear shows up, push it down. And when it wakes up again, turn it off again. Then he walks over to the unconscious hunter and grabs him by the hair. The hair comes off in his hand. Our boy stands there holding a wig, staring at a completely bald man, and asks what this is. Was this guy bald the entire time? Nari takes one look at the bald head and starts laughing so hard she forgets to be afraid. She announces that she is not scared anymore. Do-woon notes that this guy was never supposed to be on her level in the first place, and Gu says that would explain a few things, because a mechanical creature has mental resonance. It lets you look into somebody else's memories and broadcast them to other people. So Gu reaches into Nari's memory and shows him a lab scientist standing over her, mocking her, asking why she is avoiding him now, saying it looks like she finally developed a sense of self, telling her she has nothing to be afraid of, because this is only another endurance test. Back in the present, the MC puts a hand on her head and tells her she did well. He knows the trauma is not going to evaporate, but maybe this is the first step toward getting out from under it. Then there is the practical question of what to do with the bald guy, and Nari has an idea. Sometime later, Nam Ji-seok is hanging directly over a waterfall. Nari cheerfully explains that the water will stop his fire from burning, and that the baldy is not scary anymore. Our boy stands there watching a grown man dangle over falling water, and wonders whether this is really what he came to the demon realm for. The girl points at the hunter and declares that he is bad, and Do-woon tells her not to judge people by their appearance. He also privately notes that she is going to recover much faster than he expected. Then he takes a pot down to the pond, and Gu asks what he is doing. Collecting water for ramen. Nari hears the word ramen and announces that his fish ramen is the best. Our boy smiles and asks whether the coconut tribe also eats fish. Ramen. She confirms it. The coconut tribe loves ramen. Up on the rope, Ji-seok is running calculation. Is this guy at least A-class? Maybe he is hiding his real ability. Maybe he is one of those exclusive hunters who works alone. Although hanging a man over a waterfall and then casually making lunch is a bit much, even for the demon realm. Then Nari reaches into the pond with her bare hands, hauls out a piranha, and shouts that she caught a fish. Do-woon tells her he only needs one, so she can release the rest. Ji-seok's internal monologue gets worse. What are these things? Are these monsters about to make a stinking broth? Why does he need that much water? Do either of them have the faintest idea how ramen works? And then he cracks and shouts at them to let him down, because he will make the ramen himself. So they cut him loose, and the man stands there holding a packet of instant noodles like it is the most important object he has ever been handed. To some people, this is just ramen. To him right now, it is life and death. Ramen has to be made with love, and it has to respect the fundamentals. He does not have a special recipe anyway. The water gets measured by eye, Noodles and soup base into boiling water, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. His resting heart rate is 60 beats per minute, so that comes out to exactly 270 beats, which is the perfect amount of time. At beat 200, he lifts the noodles out of the pot and announces the air shower, because he has a trick. To get the ideal texture, you have to run air through them. He wishes he had kimchi. But this is the demon realm. He did everything he could out here. He has no regret. Then he sets down some genuinely excellent ramen and gestures for them to try it. All 3 of them sit and eat, and all 3 of them are stunned. Gu, in complete shock, asks whether people get to eat like this all the time. Nari shouts that it is delicious. Even the MC admits he is impressed. They finish the pot. Ji-seok comes over and asks whether they liked it, and our boy tells him to name his price. It was far too good to eat for free, so let him ask for something, and if it can be done, it will be done. The hunter drops to his knees, bows his head, and asks to be trained. He wants to be as strong as the hunter Do-woon. The MC, a little thrown, asks why he is calling him that, and what exactly he wants to be taught. Ji-seok lays it out. This is the strongest hunter he has ever met, and judging by that house, he is out here for the long haul. Also, he can cook more than ramen. His dad owns a fried chicken shop, so his fried chicken is excellent. Going back through the gate for supplies all the time must be exhausting, right? And the clothing situation is, respectfully, not great. Let him be the courier. He will do anything for lessons. He wants to be made an A-class hunter. Do-woon has one question first. Why did he attack Nari? Was it for money? Ji-seok starts to say something about the robot, and our boy quietly informs him that she is from the coconut tribe, and that he should play along. So the hunter switches to the truth, tearfully. It was personal. It is hard to explain. He does not need a reward, and he does not need Nari. He just wants to pass the hunter test. Nothing else matters. Do-woon tells him to get up then. He ate well, so he needs to stretch. He is inviting him to spar, because last time the fight ended a little quickly. Ji-seok is thanking him when Nari cuts in and asks whether she can fight too. He was the one who told her to push the fear away. She wants to try putting out the fire herself. Ji-seok smiles at that and points out that maybe she forgot something. Do-woon is strong, sure, but he is not weak either. Our boy points at a nearby block of obsidian and asks whether he can break it. The hunter goes pale. That is obsidian. It is many times harder than diamond. That is insane. You need to be at least a class to break ore like that. Nari winds up and puts her fist through it. Then she tells the baldy to come out, because she wants to fight him. Now, to be fair to the man, Nam Ji-seok used to be somebody. He is a natural awakener, and his powers came online at 8 years old, which is absurd, because powers normally show up in late adolescence. He was talented, he was disciplined, and he grew at a terrifying rate. He was a B-rank hunter before he turned 12. He was going to be the greatest hunter alive, and everything he could see said he was on schedule. There was exactly one flaw in the plan. The worst part is that it also happened too early. At the age when most people are only starting to develop powers, he started rapidly going bald. His crown thinned out in his early 20s. By 25, his hairline had settled into a clean letter M. He tried clinic after clinic, treatment after treatment, and none of it did anything. He used to walk into a room with a striking face and monstrous talent and outshine everybody in it. Then the shine came off, and his growth as a hunter stalled out at the same time. Then one day he is lying on the couch watching television, and the news brings on Dr. Han Myung-do of the Hanbit Institute. The doctor mentions that something interesting happened while he was working. Even out in the demon realm, you almost never see liquid metal. The stuff is that rare, and somebody managed to tip a batch of it straight onto his head. Then he takes off his hat and reveals a magnificent head of hair and says it simply grew back, and that he is almost 90 years old. The anchor asks the obvious follow-up. So next he will invent a cure for baldness? The doctor says no. What the incident reminded him of is how deeply mysterious the demon realm is. As an awakened being, he intends to serve humanity, so with the remaining liquid metal he is going to build more mechanical creatures and compete for a national award. Ji-seok screams at the television that he should make the damn baldness cure. That would actually help humanity. And then, a few days later, he sees a story online. The Hanbit Institute's masterpiece, that mechanical creature, has ended up in the demon realm. So he starts thinking, are there even laws out there? No. Then it is first come, first served. He is going to find that robot, and he is going to pour it over his head. Back in the present, the robot has just knocked him flat on his back with almost no effort. Do-woon points out that he has not landed one clean hit, and if this continues, he is not getting the job. Ji-seok shouts that he will do better, and begs for another round. Meanwhile, our boy has built a chest of drawers, and he stands back and notes that it looks solid. Probably mahogany. Gu agrees that he will get years out of that one. Then the chick looks over at the hunter and asks whether this guy has guts or something, because he has been getting beaten up all day, and somehow looks more energetic than when he started. Maybe it is because he took the wig off. Ji-seok comes up loaded with fire and demands a rematch. Gu observes that he is genuinely good with fire, but wonders what happens to a man who cannot beat a child. Do-woon tells him she is not an ordinary child. The hunter charges in shouting that this time the win is his, and lands a serious fire strike. Nari turns into liquid, flows straight through it, snaps back into human shape, and kicks him. She stands over the unconscious hunter and happily announces that she is not afraid of fire anymore, and it is all thanks to him. Ji-seok on the ground wonders whether this is it, whether this is the ceiling of a lifelong B rank. He is out of techniques. No, he is going back up the ranks. Where else is a loser like him ever going to get sparring like this? He is not quitting. He will try again. So he stands up one more time and asks for another round. And then his nose starts bleeding. Do-woon asks how long he has been in the demon realm. Day 9. Our boy tells him to go home. At his level, staying any longer is dangerous, and the demonic energy will kill him. Then he adds the part that actually matters. He thinks this man can reach a rank, so he should give it everything he has. Ji-seok tells him he has failed the A-rank promotion exam 6 years running. And there is a saying about that, 3 straight failures on the same exam, and a hunter is supposed to accept that trying again is pointless. Do-woon disagrees. In his opinion, there is still room to grow, because the man's mana has not finished developing, so do not quit. And when he gets back, purge the demonic energy properly. Ji-seok lights up and promises to give it his best, and asks him to look out for him. The MC quietly decides he is going to make this guy A rank. Later, standing at the portal, Ji-seok asks whether they need anything, since it looks like they are out of ramen. Do-woon says that would be nice. Nori says goodbye and tells him to be more careful. He tells her to train hard, because next time he is winning. Oh, and one more thing. Has anybody seen his wig? Our boy says no. Absolutely not. Never seen it. The hunter says goodbye and teleports out. Gu immediately asks whether he really thinks this is fine, because if that man betrays them, they are in serious trouble. He could come back with other hunters. Do-woon turns it around and asks what Gu thinks. He can read people's memories, can't he? The chick admits it. The guy was genuinely determined to get stronger, and the bald head was real. Our boy says that is the point. He was sincere, and Do-woon likes that. He decides the man is worth the investment. Then Nari, still processing, asks whether he seriously understands bird language. He confirms it, and adds that he built this chest of drawers on the bird's advice, and it came out pretty well, right? The house looks much tidier. The girl asks whether it is a bit dark in here. He immediately cuts windows into the wall at his own height, and asks if she wants windows too. Nuri cuts her own window at her own height, and declares that light is cool. Then he says that if she likes light, they should build something like a lamp, so it is not dark at night. She asks how. He explains glowstones. They glow in the dark, and if you fix a few to the ceiling, the whole room lights up. Gu, surprised, asks whether he actually knows where to find glowstones. Do-woon says he does. The material comes from volcanic zones. And Gu goes quiet, then nervously points out that volcanic zones are among the most dangerous places a hunter can go. Also, that is where he is from. Our boy asks whether he does not want to go back to his homeland. Why the gloomy face? Nari grabs the chick and asks what he is saying, because he sounds strange and she thinks he is upset. Then she starts hugging him, and Gu complains that this child is far too perceptive. The MC says he thinks the problem is the volcanic zone itself, so he will go alone and the two of them can stay here. Nari says she is coming. She is not afraid of fire anymore, so she is going to the volcanic zone with him. Do-woon smiles at that because he genuinely did not expect her to clear that fear so fast. Then he asks about the chick. Gu says he is going too. He has unfinished business, so our boy tells them to follow him. But first, equipment. Meanwhile, over in the Valley of the Mandrakes, the plants are having the time of their lives playing with Ji-seok's wig. Also, living in that volcanic zone, there is a huge and extremely dangerous monster. Hold that one too. They set out, and Gu explains what they are walking into. The volcanic zone is one of 3 regions that hunters in the demon realm actively avoid. The ash cuts you as it lands. Between the toxic gas concentration and the demonic energy, breathing is simply off the table. And back on the human side, almost no information about this region exists at all. Then he turns and looks at Nari, who is happily splashing around in the lava, and asks what this child is doing. Do-woon says she is playing with fire. Gu accepts that a mechanical creature would be fine in there, but then he turns to the other one. What about him? Who is he? Exactly. The answer is that he is a chimera hunter. Gu says he suspected as much, then points out the hole in it, because chimera hunters do not usually look like humans. So our boy explains. He was a chimera, then he was reborn, and the shape came back human. Then he asks his own question, because Gu is a monster. So is he actually comfortable traveling with a hunter? Gu says it is not that bad. It is nice having somebody to talk to, and they do not look like bad guys. Nari comes over and asks whether he is talking to the chick again, because she wants to talk to him too. The MC tells her Gu was asking who he used to be. She answers for him, happily. He is a resident of the demon realm, just like her. Gu notes that he is one too. After a while of picking their way through the zone, the chick says the glowstones should be near the eruption sites, and Do-woon says they need the crater, and the crater is close. So they climb the boiling volcano and look down over the walls, and there is a glowstone down there. There is also a monster, a fire toad, and a second one, which appears to be crying. Nuri points and shouts that there is another one over there. The sick part is what Gu reads off the scene, because the female is dead. The one with the eggs on her back is the female, female because they carry the eggs on their backs, and only females get that sunken back during breeding season. But with the female dead, all those eggs die too. The crater runs too hot for eggs to survive on their own. Nari's eyes fill up, and she says the toad looks sad about losing a friend. Our boy is already moving. He tells her to wait here a second, and drops straight down into the crater, landing face to face with the surviving toad. Gu shouts that a fire toad is extremely sensitive right now, and he should not get closer. The monster answers with a column of flame. Du-woon walks through it at a speed nothing in that crater can follow, taps the toad once on the forehead with a finger, and the toad goes to sleep. He wonders whether that was the Nekocobra's paralyzing toxin. He only used a little, so it will wake up quickly. Fire toads are immune to toxins anyway. Nari calls down asking if he is okay, and he says he is, because he has fire toad cells in him. Then he says the part that matters. They cannot do anything for the dead one, but the rest of them will live. So he ties the eggs onto the body of the living toad, and he ties them tightly, so the babies will be fine until they hatch. The toad wakes up, works out what has been done for it, and says goodbye to the dead female. Then it leaps, higher than anything that size should be able to, and on the way past it looks at Nari, and keeps going. The girl shouts that the fire toad looked over at them, and that she thinks it was saying thank you. Our boy thinks it was looking at the female. Then he waves them down, because they still need the glowstones and he would like to go home. Nari cheers about digging up stones and going home, and they get to work, and he warns her not to drop one on her feet because it will hurt. Gu helps carry a few, then lies down next to the backpack. Du-woon notices and asks if he is okay. The chick says he used to play with these stones easily, if only he had not cowered. So our boy asks him something else. He was never obligated to help them. Why is he not off doing his own thing? He brought gifts because he wants to see his friends, right? Gu gets defensive immediately. What kind of friends would a monster have? He had no intention of seeing anybody. He was just going to leave the gifts and go. Du-woon says it plainly. He misses his own kind. Are intelligent monsters really so different from the rest? And the chick, more embarrassed now, insists he does not miss them. He just regrets that he never got to say goodbye when he left. Our boy pushes a little further and asks whether he abandoned his pack. And Gu gives him the real answer. Getting smarter was great. It also came with some bad moments. He remembers exactly what it felt like to be different from every other creature around him, and then he explains it the only way he knows how. In the land of the one-eyed monkeys, a monkey with 2 eyes is the strange one. That is why he left. He also doubts anybody noticed he was gone. That pack never had much of a sense of camaraderie. Then he goes to pull a glowstone loose, overdoes it, and the stone drops. And that is when something cracks. Nari says she heard a noise, and there is an egg lying on the ground over here. Du-woon comes over and identifies it as a monster egg, although he has no idea what kind. Then he stops. Wait, is that a crack in it? The girl says the crack is small. Maybe the chick damaged it when he dropped the stone. Our boy takes a closer look and says no. He thinks the baby inside punched through the shell on its own, and that is a sign of a healthy, strong one. Nori asks what they should do with it, and then answers herself. They should take it. If they leave it here, it is going to cook. Gu gets excited about the idea of something hatching. The MC thinks about the dresser and wonders whether there is a spot in the house they could turn into a nest. He also, briefly, wonders who exactly is in there. Then he decides there is no choice, and they are taking it. At which point Gu turns nervous and points out that he has never seen an egg like that before. Our boy asks who exactly told him to drop the glowstone. The chick asks what happens if Nari ends up in danger, and Du-woon smiles and says it will be fine because he will handle it. Gu settles down and agrees, and the MC says great, now they need more glowstones. Then they head home, where Ji-seok is already waiting for them. He asks where they have been, and offers to carry the haul. Our boy, mildly surprised, hands over the backpack and mentions that it is heavy. Ji-seok says he is strong. Ji-seok cannot lift it, and asks what on earth they put in there. And while all of this is happening somewhere out in the volcanic zone, Gu's relatives find the gift he left behind, which is ramen, and eat it very happily. Meanwhile, Du-woon has noticed something else and calls the hunter over. What happened to his face? Ji-seok says he never thought of himself as the type who gets beaten up. Then he scratches his head with an awkward smile and adds that, well, Nari beats him up all the time. Our boy stands there wondering whether that is the part the man is proud of. Ji-seok escapes the conversation by claiming he has to go serve food, and the MC watches him leave with a great deal of doubt. Then he gets to work cutting stones, and Nari comes over and asks what he is doing now. He tells her he wants to make a lamp. He cuts and shapes the glowstones, then hangs them from the ceiling. It will look pretty cute, does she not think so? She lets out a small, awed breath and then announces that she thinks he is very smart. He knows so much and he explains things really well. And he has a kind heart just like her dad. Our boy smiles and asks how her dad is doing these days. He is with the coconut tribe now, right? She says immediately that he is doing fine. Elsewhere in the yard, Gu has stretched out to enjoy the sunset, and he is having a lovely time. The light out here is so warm, nothing like the volcanic zone. He feels like his body is melting. Then a shadow falls across him. 3 mandrakes have decided that his rest period is over. They stand there looking genuinely menacing, like Gu is about to receive a formal punishment, and then the smallest of them launches itself at him, spinning like a shuriken. It bounces off his stomach like a trampoline. Gu shoots upright with no idea what just happened, and the mandrakes swarm him. Nari asks why they are fighting, and the MC guesses they are unhappy about somebody occupying their territory. Then Ji-seok arrives with plates and announces fried bean curd rice balls, which he describes as sweet and sour, and so tempting that they lure children into nets. The taste is simply superb. He is enormously proud of this. It is easy to make, but it is a genuinely wonderful dish. Gu says it looks delicious, and Ji-seok tells him to hurry up and eat. But our boy is still stuck on the earlier question, because nobody ever explained the face. The hunter scratches his head and gives it up. Went to the Hunters Association for the A-class promotion exam, and ran into a group of A-class jerks. Do-woon works out the rest on his own because they were mocking him for failing the exam 7 times, and he swung on them, and this is the result. Ji-seok confirms it. They told him to stop hanging around there. They kept at him, going after the bald head, all of that. Then Do-woon asks a question that he immediately regrets, which is whether the man just shaves it, since he is not actually completely bald. Ji-seok looks at him. He does not say anything. He does not have to, because the real reason for the hair loss remains a medical mystery. Our boy, now deeply uncomfortable, changes the subject and asks when the exam is. 2 months, 60 days. So he stands up and says it is time for special training. Ji-seok is on his feet instantly, asking if he means it, telling him to just say what to do, and it is done. Do-woon lays out the program. From now on, he washes Kim Neri's dishes. Then he points at the bag of glowstones and says those need cleaning too, because they are covered in volcanic dust. Ji-seok points out carefully that this was supposed to be special training. Our boy says that if he does not want to do it, he is welcome to stay B-class for the rest of his life. Then he calls Nari over, because they are going fishing, which makes her extremely happy, and Ji-seok calls after him in confusion and gets completely ignored. The hunter lowers his head and starts on the dishes, comforting himself with the thought that there is probably a reason for this. Then he shoulders the backpack, plants his feet, growls and delivers an internal speech. Everyone assumes a hunter is born a genius, but he, Nam Ji-seok, is a man who reached B-class through work. A man who has nothing but diligence and stubbornness, and every intention of going all the way. A man who gets off his knees and tries for the 7th time, carrying that absurd load on his back. He follows Do-woon and announces he is coming along, while privately concluding that this man has everything. Kind, extremely cool, looks powerful. Then the fishing starts. Neri is nearly asleep, because nothing is biting, and then she looks over and says all the fish are swimming toward Ji-seok. They are. Aggressive ones are launching out of the water trying to take pieces out of him, and he is screaming for Do-woon because they stink. And water monsters are the worst kind of monster. He lets out a genuinely frightened noise, and our boy concludes that this guy needs supervision at all times. So he drops the rod, walks over, and asks what exactly he is doing with his mana. Just use a shield. Ji-seok scratches the back of his head and admits he practiced, but he is not very good at it. So the MC tries something. He hands him a stone and tells him to just hold it. Dark energy crawls out of it toward the man's hand, and Ji-seok drops it instantly and asks whether that is demonic energy, because his hand will not take power at all. Do-woon explains the mechanic. Some glowstones carry demonic energy inside them, real demon realm energy, so the only way to pull their true power out is with raw mana. And the man is not short on mana. He has plenty. What he lacks is control. Ji-seok pictures it moving through his body and stares at his own palms, and our boy tells him to open a path inside himself, then follow that path and guide the mana along it. The hunter concentrates and pulls mana into his hands, and the MC tells him to keep his focus there and try the stone again. He touches it. It fights him. Demonic energy comes straight up into his face, and he pushes through it and lifts the stone with a shout of triumph. Then he starts laughing, because it just landed. The dishes, the glowstones, all of it was the plan. It was all so he would learn mana control. Do-woon smiles and tells him to keep using mana. From now on, the dishes are his responsibility, and Ji-seok does not argue for 1 second. He is thrilled. He tells his teacher he can count on him, because he, Nam Ji-seok, is a man who can polish anything to a shine, and the single most economical man in the world. Night comes. The lamps are finished and hanging from the ceiling. Everyone goes to bed. Ji-seok snores at volume and drools. The MC sleeps in total silence, which does not help Gu at all, because Gu is still awake and increasingly annoyed about it. He decides he should have slept during the day. Then he hears something, and opens his eyes. Nari is up and heading for the door. He wonders where she is going this late, and the answer is the river, because her clothes are dirty and it has been bothering her, so she decided to wash them. She is also being followed. Do-woon. watching from behind a tree, asks why she picked the middle of the night to do laundry, and Gu calls him an idiot and points out that she is a girl and she does not own a change of clothes, which lands on our boy hard, because he never once thought about what she was wearing, and she is a child, and he starts wondering whether he has been handling this badly. She finishes and walks out of the water looking very pleased with herself. So Do-woon strolls out of hiding, pretending he happened to be walking past, and she nervously asks what he is doing here. He says he is out for a walk with Gu. Did she come out for a walk too? She confirms this enthusiastically. Then he asks her to hold still, tightens the belt at her waist, and tucks a flower into it. He asks what she thinks of the look. Personally, he finds it kind of cute. Nari lights up and says it is very beautiful, just like his. He tells her those are forsythia flowers, her favorite. Then something rustles in the bushes, and she grabs his hand and asks what that was. He smiles and says it is fine, just a grasshopper. It is a steel locust, a B-class monster, and he decides she does not need to know that tonight. On the way back, he asks whether she needs anything. Clothes, shoes. She tells him he has already given her everything she needs, and she likes all of it. The next morning he goes to District 13. He steps out of the portal thinking about the fact that she said everything was fine, and that making her wear the same clothes, which do not even fit her, was still wrong. Also that Gu would never let him hear the end of it. Every hunter in the area notices him immediately, because he is barefoot. He could not possibly care less. He thinks about bringing her here so she can pick things herself, then rules it out, because with her injury the human world may not be safe for her, and she still has a tracking device in her body. He also notes how funny this is. Who would have guessed he would burn a gate stone to come back to the slums and buy clothes for a kid? He looks around and says out loud that there was definitely a clothing store around here somewhere. How long has it been? It has not closed down, has it? Then somebody tugs his sleeve and asks whether he is looking for a clothing store, because for 10,000 he will take him there. He is not from around here, right? He knows a good place, and cheap. Do-woon says he will pay him once he gets change, since he has nothing small on him right now. The kid sighs heavily, looks at the bare feet, and mentally files him under newbie, who got robbed the second he stepped into the demon realm. Then he puts his hands behind his head, saunters off in front, and asks whether he at least has money for the clothes. Follow him. He normally takes payment up front, but this guy looks so pathetic that he will make an exception. Our boy thanks him with a smile, and the kid says his name is Bong Su. The MC gives his own name, then looks at the patrol cars going past, and remarks that the slums have gotten safer. Bong Su squints at him, and asks whether he only just awakened. Do-woon, surprised, asks whether it is that obvious. Bong Su explains the deduction. He walked out of a gate with no equipment on him. He probably spent a fortune on gear, and thugs took the lot. He should not feel bad. Everybody starts somewhere. Our boy smiles and tells him he is smart for his age. Bong Su is instantly offended. He is not a child. He is short because he does not eat much. He is 17. Then Do-woon spots a group of men robbing somebody in broad daylight, and Bong Su gives him the local briefing. Slums are everywhere around here, but he should stay out of District 13. It is genuinely dangerous. The gang that used to run District 11 pushed their territory all the way over, and the police have more or less given up, so people avoid the whole route. By the way, this is District 12. Our boy frowns and wonders whether the orphanage he grew up in is still standing over in 13. Meanwhile, in a clothing store, a woman is sitting behind the counter dying of boredom. She sighs and says she must have been out of her mind to open a clothing store in the slums. Young people here do not have children because they cannot afford to feed them, and almost her entire stock is children's wear. Maybe she should switch businesses. The bell rings. Bong Su walks in, calls out to Auntie Boss Park, and announces that he is back. She explodes immediately. She has told him about the auntie thing more times than she can count. She is not even married. Drop it. Do-woon, meanwhile, is looking around, because this is the first time in his life he has been inside a clothing store. Bong Su tells her that this guy needs clothes, and he is a hunter too. Park irritably tells him to come over here, which makes the kid nervous, and then she grabs him and demands to know whether he plans to keep dragging broke hunters into her shop. Does he have any idea how many unpaid bills she has? He fires back that it is not confirmed whether this one has money, and she tells him to look at the guy. Does that look like a man with money? He says, in fairness, that the guy is kind of cute. Then he reminds her that she is the one who told him to bring struggling hunters here, the ones who reminded her of herself. She says that happened one time, and that if she keeps helping kids like him, she is going to end up homeless. He asks whether he ever requested any of it. She is the one who kept bringing him food. She says none of that matters, and he should take a good look at himself, and she will give him money so he can go clean himself up. Which is when the MC finishes browsing, turns around, and says he would like to buy some clothes. Then he hands her a check for 10 million won, says that is everything he has, and asks how many clothes that gets him. The piece of paper begins to glow in front of both of them like buried treasure. Boss Park claps her hands once and transforms into the warmest salesperson in the country. This is a place where he can meet a brand new version of himself every single day. Welcome. Bong Su brings out a tray of food and drinks and sits him down, and while the kid gives him a shoulder massage, Park explains that they carry both adult and children's clothing. Is he shopping for himself? He says he is looking for clothes for a preschool girl, and while he is here, he might as well pick up something for himself. He also needs shoes. Park's smile goes wider than physically necessary. That is so sweet, and he has come to exactly the right place, because children's clothing is their specialty. They start with the spring-summer collection. She shows him a couple of outfits and explains that lace is a must, and for an active child, sportswear, because it is easier to move in, right? And if he ever sees pink, he takes it immediately. She is extremely good at her job. Our boy buys everything she puts in front of him. Watching the receipt print out at the length of a small novel, Boss Park sheds a genuine tear of joy and praise that every day could be like this. She has nothing left to sell. She cannot believe it. She says there are more than 100 items here, and asks whether he would like delivery arranged. He says he will carry it himself. Then he hands Bong-soo several bags of clothes and a stack of bills and says these are for him, and he has one thing to ask of him. So the MC loads everything into one enormous bag and goes somewhere with the kid, and where they end up is a clean, decent hotel. He points out that there is a police station nearby so it is safe, and the owner is a very nice person. He asks Bong-soo to wait outside and goes in. What our boy does not know is that outside, Bong-soo is putting the pieces together, and the picture he is building is not a good one. It does not matter how much money the man has. Handing a teenager 100,000 won and buying him clothes, he has heard about this. These days they lure kids in with money and then take them. Should he run? But then again, what if this guy is genuinely kind, like Boss Park is? Do-woon comes out and remarks that, as promised, the owner is quite nice and the place is clean inside. Then he hands over the room keys and says it looks like the kid has been sleeping on the street. He has paid a year of rent, so this is where he lives now. Meals are included, so eat well. Bong-soo stares at the keys, and as the man turns to go, he finds the courage to ask his question. If he goes in there, is he going to get kidnapped? Our boy has no idea what he is talking about, and points out that Bong-soo is the one who brought him here. So the kid asks the real question. If that is not what he wants, then what is it? They just met. Tips, clothes, an entire room. Why is he being this kind? And the MC answers him with a smile. He just reminds him of the past. It has been a long time since he lived the way this kid does. Then he says goodbye, and tells him they will see each other again. Finally, he goes home, where he is met by a completely naked Ji-seok wrapped in a blanket, on account of his clothes having been mercilessly stolen, and by Nari, who is furious that he left without telling anyone. He says he went to buy her presents, and the fury converts into delight at once. He shows them the bag, and Gu asks in disbelief how many clothes one man can buy. Nari pulls out a sweater and starts celebrating. Ji-seok asks whether there is anything in there for him, and our boy tells him he already knows the answer to that. Then he tells the girl that if she likes something, she should go inside and try it on, and she sprints into the house. Meanwhile, the egg starts moving. Something in there is getting ready. Do-woon settles in and starts folding clothes, and finds the activity genuinely relaxing. Nari comes running out to show him an outfit and says she thinks it looks cute. He agrees, and asks whether that dress is her favorite. She says, hesitantly, that she will try on some more. Then she comes out in a jumpsuit she is halfway into, asking how these pants are supposed to work. Then she comes out as a ghost, which is to say wearing his t-shirt, and every time she disappears back inside, the MC notices that she is completely unreservedly happy. Gu says she is cute. Then she comes out one last time, and announces she has picked her outfit. She proudly presents a sweater with a bird pattern on it and says it looks exactly like their Gu, and she really likes it. Gu awkwardly asks whether that is what he looks like. Our boy compliments the choice and offers to let her fold the rest herself, and she happily takes the job. Gu looks at the enormous bag that is still half full and asks what the plan is for all this, because there is no room in the house. Do-woon says he was just thinking about that. He is going to build another house and put in a dressing room with fitted closets. Gu points out that they will need to cut down a lot more trees. Then, our boy tells him not to worry about it, because they already have workers. Then he turns toward the forest and asks whether a certain someone wanted special training. Something hits the ground in front of the tree line. That is Ji-seok landing. He announces confidently that he is ready for special training at any time, then walks over and hands his teacher the hide, saying that he has already prepared the training equipment. Do-woon has no idea what he is talking about, and asks whether the leather clothes are supposed to be a training uniform, because that hide was soaked in poison. Ji-seok thought he was going to die when he grabbed it without thinking. Clearly, this is some kind of special method for pushing yourself to the limit in everyday life and getting stronger. He genuinely respects it, and he intends to follow in those footsteps and train even harder. In reality, our boy was just too lazy to wash it, so he tells him to put it on then. The excitement drains out of the hunter's face and is replaced by pure confusion. The MC decides those clothes really are excellent for training and announces today's program. Put it on and go chop down trees. Gu says he is coming too. Ji-seok nervously says he might die wearing this. Also, why trees? Then Nari yells for Do-woon from the house. She is at the window shouting that something strange is happening with the egg, so all four of them gather around it and wait. Our boy notes that it is moving harder now and something is about to come out. Ji-seok asks, with justified suspicion, whether that is a disaster-level monster. Nari says confidently that it will be a cute little monster, and when he asks how she could possibly know that, she says she just knows. Then the egg cracks. An eye appears, and Ji-seok immediately gets behind the child, while the child leans in closer. The thing inside pushes the shell apart with its paws and crawls out, and Ji-seok panics about the sharp claws and the scales, and the long tongue. But the real surprise comes a second later, when the thing finishes climbing out, because it is not scary in the slightest. It is a small, extremely cute snake, with chicken legs. Ji-seok asks what kind of snake that is supposed to be, and Nari announces that this monster is so cute. Then the snake jumps high and lands directly on the face of the man who was already terrified of it. He stands there frozen, trying to process what has happened to him, and then screams. After that, he finally puts on the poison hide and goes to work, and the whole time Gu rides along tapping him on the forehead with a stick to keep the pace up. Ji-seok hauls logs with his teeth clenched, wondering whether this monster is actually scolding him or whether he is imagining it, and also about the poison, because he can barely breathe. He also cannot work out how Do-woon ever wore this thing. Back at the house, our boy finishes the laundry and stretches, and finds it genuinely funny that he is doing laundry again after all this time. Nari comes over to report that the snake likes bread, and that it is a very cute and very well-behaved monster. He smiles and says he thinks the snake understands that she saved it. Then she asks what they should call it, and since it is a snake, he suggests Sasa, at which point Sasa spots something, launches out of her hands, and takes off, with Nari chasing after it. Gu flies up and remarks that the children are getting along nicely, and Do-woon says she likes the new family member. Then he asks whether this is a rare species because he has never seen a monster like that. Gu has not either, but he does know one thing, and he says it fast. That creature is definitely from a volcanic zone, so they need to watch the mandrakes very carefully, because most volcanic zone monsters consider mandrakes a delicacy. Out here they are valuable, so the trick is making sure they do not get eaten, and the stronger the magic energy in the plant, the better it tastes. A snake will absolutely try to eat a mandrake. In other words, the thing they just adopted is a natural predator of the thing they are growing. Sasa arrives at the mandrake bed. The mandrakes feel it coming, and climb straight up out of the soil to meet it. Everybody hurries over, and Ji-seok asks what is going on. Do-woon notes that Gu called it, and Nari volunteers to break it up. Our boy says it would be great if they did not fight, but this is the demon realm, and a hierarchy may simply have to be established. Sasa is still young, so it is not especially dangerous. He suggests they watch. Sasa starts pacing back and forth, waiting for an opening. The mandrakes draw their weapons and track every movement. Then the snake's expression changes, because it has picked a target. The mandrake in question looks terrified. Sasa pounces, and Ji-seok calls it because it went for the smallest one. The eldest mandrake blocks the strike and covers his brother. Then the three of them lock into a triangle, which is a defensive formation, not an attacking one. The second one counters and cracks the snake with a stick, and Sasa blocks it with its tail and looks unmistakably pleased with itself. Too early, because the third one is still in play, and the smallest mandrake comes down on Sasa with both fists loaded, and the moment it connects, the snake bursts into tears. Ji-seok starts worrying about Sasa, and Nari explains that the snake is in shock, because that was the first pain it has ever felt in its life. Then she runs off to comfort the baby. Do-woon rules that the mandrakes take it today. Ji-seok and Gu agree that it was a grand and genuinely impressive bout. Then the MC points out that the show is over and everyone can get back to work, and Gu immediately kicks Ji-seok, who complains bitterly that this bird has no heart. Meanwhile, far away, a winged shape is cutting across the open sea. Hold that one too. Back at the site, a very pale Ji-seok is still working on the wardrobe. Nuri is helping, coating the logs with a special solution. Do-woon is loading clothes onto the shelf. A new day comes up and Ji-seok tears the poison hide off, drops to his knees, and screams that he is finally free. 2 days with no sleep. Absolute hell. Then he looks at the enormous creepy structure they have built and thinks that, sure, he did exactly what he was told. But is this normal? Our boy walks up and tells him he did better than expected, and the hunter quietly wonders whether that means everything is fine. Then Nari takes a deep breath and says the dressing room smells like flowers. Ji-seok is confused, then sniffs, then smiles, because the lavender is unbelievably calming, and it is even better with your eyes shut. Nari asks why it smells like that, and Do-woon explains that Gu deliberately picked fragrant wood, and adds that the clothes are going to smell like it too. The mandrakes love it. So does Sasa, which prompts Ji-seok to ask whether the snake is actually named Sasa. Nari says her uncle named it that, and Ji-seok offers to change it if anybody has better ideas. He goes first. How about chicken snake? Our boy shakes his head, because this man has no imagination whatsoever. Nari proposes pee-pee, also rejected. Gu says everyone here is thinking far too small, and Do-woon mentions that Gu claims to have a real name of his own. Gu announces with enormous pride that his real name is Horseshoe Rocky Mountains and that it perfectly reflects his personality. The MC concludes that this one is hopeless too and proposes they keep the original name. Nobody objects. Then Gu asks what the plan is now that the house has grown, and Do-woon says he thought about it while he was in the human world. Back when he was alone, none of this mattered. Things are different now, so how about a serious fence around the house? That way, if he leaves, nobody can get to them. Ji-seok glances at the place and says he genuinely does not think anybody is coming out here. Our boy says nobody knows what happens next. S-rank monsters could come. So could hunters. Gu says in that case they need durable magic material, and he knows one. There is a stone on the coast that is harder than black jade. He has heard it called yellow sparkling quartz. Build the fence out of that, run glowstones along underneath it, and it would look incredible. Do-woon pictures it and agrees that the camping atmosphere at night would be beautiful and suggests they get moving to the coast. Ji-seok is horrified. Do they have any idea what kind of place that is? He does not want to go so badly that he decides to fake an illness. He drops to his knees, presses a hand weakly to his forehead, and explains that he really must go back and restore his magic energy. Then Do-woon tells him to take care of the mandrakes if they get back late, and the man perks up enormously and says he understands completely. But he does give them a warning. Be careful on that coast. It is dangerous, and hunters below A rank do not go there. More importantly, that whole area is controlled by 2 disaster-level monsters. Our boy asks what kind. Ji-seok tells him. They look like chimera hunters that escaped from the research center. Bird faces, human bodies. Out on that coast, the winged one has arrived, and there are hunters waiting for him. The squad captain orders a tracking sensor prepped. One of them lines it up, throws and connects, and there is a flash of light. He is delighted with himself. Or at least, that is how it looks, because the target simply leaves. One of the hunters says these are disaster-level monsters, and he honestly thought that was just a rumor, then asks the captain whether they should pursue. The captain tells them to wait until it holes up in its shelter. There are only 2 of them, and one is now tagged, so there is no reason to rush. Then a hunter asks the question that matters. It has been 60 years. Should those 2 not be dead, or fully monsters by now? How are they still walking around in human bodies? The captain says it was clearly a failed experiment. And then he says the part that tells you everything about him, because whatever anybody claims, the production of chimera hunters is humanity's single greatest achievement, and they cannot allow failed experiments to stain it. So they are getting rid of them today. Then the spotter nervously calls over to the commander, because the target is not flying away. It is coming straight at them. The captain screams for a defensive barrier. The bird beats his wings once, and the wind that comes off them punches through the barrier and injures the men behind it. One blow. They underestimated him badly, and now they know it. He peels off to build speed and comes around for another pass, and the captain is losing it, shouting at his people to do something. Block it. Anything. He is about to hit them when a small girl slams into him out of nowhere and tells him to stop bullying weaklings. He clocks instantly what she is, and both of them break off, and he lands. Nari runs to Do-woon complaining that Uncle Sparrow was picking on ordinary people, and our boy says he suspects it was rather the other way round. Meanwhile, one of the hunters is excitedly waving a tablet at his commander, saying there seems to be a mechanical creature nearby. The captain asks what he is talking about, and the man explains that the bounty on it was decent, so he brought a tracking device along. The MC pats the girl on the head and registers the problem, because she is carrying a tracker, and that is going to cause trouble. And then there is this other guy, so he calls out to him and asks whether he remembers him. They were neighbors after all. Maybe a number would help. The bird stopped. Do-woon says he had no idea he was still alive. It is good to see him again. While the winged one works through it, the hunters decide this entire group is deeply suspicious, and the captain calls the retreat. They will regroup and come back. Our boy watches them go and tells his old neighbor that letting them walk will end badly for both of them, so he suggests dealing with this first, and then it lands, because the bird remembers. They used to lie next to each other. He was number 33. Do-woon was 17. And that smell is still coming off him, the one he will never forget as long as he lives, the one only the 2 of them ever knew. The smell of research center chemistry. So he says his old number out loud and tells him it has been a very long time. 66 years ago in the forest outside the TDA lab, number 33 was running with his sister in his arms, and they were already being hunted. Jia was in a bad way. He looked down at her and thought that of course the side effects would choose right now to surface. He kept running while the grass opened cuts across his skin, and he asked himself whether this was actually the right call. Even if the men from the lab killed him for it, would it not have been better to leave her behind? If she could turn into a bird completely, it would be different. But with wings that small, she cannot do anything. and she told him his wings were so warm, and that she was fine, and that he should keep running. His eyes filled, and he told her to hold on a little longer, because once they were out of this forest, somebody would help them. Then a light hit him in the face. Do-woon was standing there with a flashlight. Baeom asked in alarm what he was doing out here, and our boy lowered the beam and explained. He overheard the lab staff. They said the side effects were so severe that they would be disposing of him soon, so he came to tell him. And Baeom said what he always said. This guy is a genuine psycho. He always turns up in the worst possible moment to help. Then Do-woon laid out the problem. Even if they got clear, if they did not come back within 3 days, the detonation spell would kill them, and his sister was not the one scheduled for disposal. So would it not be better to stay in the lab and take the medication that suppresses the side effects? That way he gets at least 1 more day. Baeom's face closed up, and he said the one true thing available to him. Do-woon never had side effects, so he does not know what it is like to live the way they live. One day in the lab, his head hurt so badly he could not stand it. His sister put her arms around him and told him to run. She wanted to go back to a normal life, even if it was only for 1 day. So he set her down against a tree and asked whether it matters how long he lives, or how he spends whatever he has left. He wants to live free, even for 1 day. Then he told him to stop talking nonsense and attack, and pulled out his wings. Do-woon said nothing at all. A few seconds later, a portal opened behind him. Baeom asked, stunned, where he got a gatestone, and Do-woon explained the odds. If they cross into the demon realm, one of 2 things happens. Either the demonic energy poisons their human cells, or their demonic cells absorb it and activate. If he means what he just said, is that not the best option available to him? Even if he cannot control the energy and turns into a monster, he will live free, and the detonator does not work in the demon realm. Baeom asked, doubtfully, whether there was any way to survive out there as a human. In theory, yes. He would have to accumulate enough mana to shield his human body and mind from the demonic energy. In his current condition, it will not be easy, but you never know. Then the lab staff spotted the portal, and their voices came through the trees, and Baeom said he was going, and he pointed out how absurd it was. 4 years as neighbors, and neither of them knew the other's name. So he gave his Baeom, and Do-woon gave his back, smiling. Back in the present, our boy walks over to the hunters and puffs some kind of dust over them, then asks the captain his own name. The man says, confused, that he does not know. He asks why the captain thinks he came here. The captain does not know that either. So Do-woon opens a portal and tells them to walk through it and forget everything that happened here. Baeom asks whether he just wiped their memories with forgetting powder and hypnosis, and he confirms it. They transplanted forgetting grass cells into him. The memories will be gone in roughly 3 hours. Baeom asks whether that is because he never showed side effects, and our boy says they transplanted a great deal into him. Then he mentions that quite a lot has happened since the 2 of them last spoke, and confirms it out loud. Number 33, Baeom. The bird nods and says it is amazing, because he never thought he would be remembered. Nari tugs on Do-woon's sleeve and asks whether the 2 of them are friends. He confirms it, and explains that this one is from the Sparrow tribe. Baeom has no idea what that means and elects not to argue. Then the MC asks Nari whether the Sparrow tribe and the Coconut tribe are allies, right? She confirms this with great enthusiasm, while Baeom stands there understanding not 1 word of the conversation happening in front of him. Nuri bows to him and apologizes for thinking he was bad. Then her stomach growls loudly, and she informs Do-woon that she is hungry. So our boy asks Baeom where he lives, and whether he has any food. And Baeom, completely lost, tries to work out what this child even is. Is she his daughter? Is this some kind of role-playing game? He takes them home, which turns out to be an enormous cage, and Nari says it looks exactly like a real bird's nest, while Do-woon compliments him on settling in well. Then he brings out a tray and tells them to try it, although he does not know whether they will like it. Grilled clam, seasoned with a demon realm butternut that tastes like butter, plus red moss. Neri cannot believe the size of the clam. The MC says it looks delicious. Gu goes first, and the second the clam hits his mouth, he announces that it is so fresh it is like swallowing the ocean, or possibly like the ocean swallowed him. Nari says the flavor keeps opening up with every bite. Do-woon says it is even better with the red moss on it. Baeom says proudly that red moss is the single most essential spice there is, and that he is glad they like it, and that they should take their time. Then pain goes through his head, and this is where it gets bad because nobody notices except our boy. Baeom covers it instantly and acts like nothing happened, and Nari asks for more clams. He laughs awkwardly and says he is out of ingredients, and she immediately asks whether he would cook more if she caught some. He starts to say that of course he would, but it is dangerous for a small child to go clam hunting. She does not hear the second half. She is already sprinting for the sea, announcing that she is catching 10 of them. Gu notes that 10 is in fact the correct number to get full. And then the two old neighbors are finally alone. Baeom says that of all the things, he came back to life through immortal cells. Then he asks the real question. Is he going to take revenge on the lab? Do-woon says he thinks about it sometimes. Some part of him would like to, but his life is not bad right now, so he is still deciding. Then he asks Baeom the same thing, and Baeom gives him the answer that closes the door, because every spell in Do-woon's body vanished when he came back to life, and theirs did not. The detonation spell is still inside them. The moment either of them sets foot in the human world, they come apart. Our boy studies him and notes that he can control his wings now, but the head has not gone back. Baeom says he could change the head. He will not, because Jia's face changed, and if he were the only one who looked normal, it would hurt her. Do-woon says he understands. Then he asks the serious question. Does Baeom know he has a month left at most? Baeom laughs quietly and asks whether he noticed that too, and says it brings back memories. When he first arrived out here it was brutal, but he hoarded mana desperately enough to survive. And then one day he felt his mana and his demonic energy settle into balance, and for the first time in years he was at peace. Then for reasons neither of them understand, Jia's mana vessel cracked and her demonic energy started boiling. He tried to force it open to help her and damaged his own vessel doing it. He is still holding on somehow. She has been eating fruit laced with sleeping poison and has been unconscious for some time. Our boy watches his hands shaking and works out what that actually means. She is putting herself into a coma on purpose to slow the demonic energy down. He looks out at the sea and turns something else over. A damaged mana vessel can be repaired with a mandrake decoction. What Baeom does not know is that any of this is even possible. Meanwhile, Jia wakes up. She eats the fruit. It does not work anymore, and her body keeps changing, and she grabs her own shoulders as a sound comes out of her that is not human. Back at the nest, Do-woon tells her brother about the mandrake, and Baeom is on his feet instantly asking whether he just said they can survive. How? Our boy explains. He has been studying pharmacology in the lab since he was 15, so this is probably not something Baeom would know. What they need is purified water from a mana source, infused with mandrake root. The mandrake is a plant-type monster. It screams when it is torn out of the ground, and the leftover root looks like nothing, but those remains absorb underground demonic energy, and then reproduce. They are a source of life force. That is very likely why purified water steeped in them regenerates a damaged mana vessel. He never once thought he would need that knowledge. Apparently growing those things was not a waste after all. So he tells his friend he will prepare the water, and Baeom asks, surprised, whether he can really make it himself. Not exactly. Purifying the water takes somebody else, and Baeom cannot cross into the human world because of the curse. So while Do-woon is gone, he can look after the children. Baeom agrees and notes that he is in this man's debt yet again. Then our boy mentions that the alchemist is going to want paying. Does he have anything? Baeom thinks about it and says he has no money. But he does have things. Then he brings out an enormous backpack, and Do-woon asks where all this came from. Baeom scratches his head with an awkward smile and admits he packed up everything the visiting hunters left behind. Will that be enough? That is far more than enough, so he sets off. Back in the slums, he meets Bong-soo immediately and asks for help finding an awakened alchemist, and the kid strolls ahead with his hands behind his head, explaining that a branch of the Alchemy Association opened even down here last year, so they will find something. Our boy notices the bracelets on his arms and asks what those are for. Bong-soo says he is building up his stamina because he wants to get as strong as him. Do-woon raises an eyebrow at that, and the kid explains his reasoning. The man walked into the demon realm with nothing on him. He must be an incredibly strong hunter. Bong-soo wants to be that strong too, so he eats a lot and trains hard. Our boy smiles because the kid does look taller than last time. Growth spurt, probably. They reach the Alchemy Association, and Bong-soo mentions that a new manager named Kim showed up recently, and people say he is very capable and a good person. Then he hears a voice, turns, and says that is him. Kim is standing off to the side, close to tears, on the phone. Bong-soo sighs and says the loan sharks are calling him again because around here dead is normal. The man spent 20 years at the Golden City branch and was recently demoted and shipped out to this place, and they say his salary got cut as well. The MC observes that a demotion usually means somebody did something wrong. Bong-soo says that is not it at all. From what he heard, somebody at the top in Golden City was quietly siphoning money out of the slums. CEO On is notorious for that kind of thing, and when manager Kim reported it, they labeled him a problem and sent him here. Kim finishes the call, looking wrecked, and heads back toward the association, and then Bong-soo calls out to him, and the man's face changes completely. He comes over, notices the kid has gotten taller, and asks what brings him by. Bong-soo says his friend is looking for an alchemist, so here they are. Do-woon takes a proper look at the man, and there is a distinct aura on him, and our boy notes that you do not normally find high-ranking alchemists in a place like this. He certainly did not expect to run into one this close to home. Bong-soo heads off to train, and Kim brings him inside, where Assistant Park is sitting at the counter, bored out of his mind, sighing heavily, and asking himself what he is doing in this hell with these superiors. On a good day, a D-rank hunter comes in for a low-grade potion. Sales targets are a fantasy. He is not getting promoted in this lifetime. Then the door goes, and he leaps up and asks the manager whether he is back already, and Kim asks him to pour something for their guest. The MC says he will get straight to it, since he is short on time. He believes he is speaking to an A+ rank alchemist, and that alchemist can make purified mana vessel water from mandrakes, correct? He needs about 2 liters. Kim adjusts his glasses while his brain runs 2 problems at once. Mandrakes. In the slums, that is absurd. Also, how does this man know his rank? He answers that yes, he can make it, but material that valuable does not exist around here. So Do-woon takes something out of his pocket and asks whether this would do. The manager's eyes go wide, because there are mandrake roots on the table in front of him, and the demonic energy coming off them is enormous. They are unmistakable. They are also so fresh they might have been pulled minutes ago. He has never seen them in this condition in his life. Then our boy takes off the backpack and says he will be paying with goods from the coast, and asks whether Kim can appraise the lot. He lays out several pearls, red moss, and a few other things. Kim says this cannot be happening. Is all of this really from the coast? Even headquarters cannot get black S-rank pearls, and there are 3 of them here. And are those giant demon realm clams? Assistant Park leans in to inspect one, and the clam spits in his face, and he shouts in shock, because apparently they are alive. Kim picks up the red moss and says it is an essential ingredient for high-grade potions, and his assistant asks whether that is the ultra-rare plant they discovered not long ago. The MC asks whether this covers the cost of production. Manager Kim tells him it does not just cover it. For this, he could buy the entire building, and then some. Park says he would rather bring the appraisal device up from the lab anyway, and Kim agrees that goods at this value deserve proper equipment, so the assistant runs off, which leaves our boy looking at a shelf where there is a mandrake sitting in a capsule. He asks whether they were not just told there were no mandrakes here, since there is one right there. Kim says that one has been dead for about 10 years and lost its medicinal properties a long time ago. He has always been interested in studying mandrakes, so he kept it. Our boy picks up the capsule and says he can tell this mandrake is alive. Kim has no idea what he is talking about, so Do-woon releases a little mana and asks him to watch how it responds when it gets fed. The plant burned through its demonic energy and dropped into a coma. What it needs is more mana. Kim says that is impossible because he fed it mana himself. And then the door swings open. Director An walks in with his assistants to check on how things are going here, looks around and remarks that this office looks like a slum or possibly a loan shark's den. Word reached him that some extraordinary items turned up down here. Kim goes tense and wonders whether Assistant Park already called the man. He also asks how he got here so fast, and An tells him that unlike some people, he has excellent subordinates. The twins have special abilities and work at double speed. Then he spots Do-woon and asks whether he is the one who brought the goods in. He introduces himself as Executive Director An Ji-jong of the Alchemy Association, Golden City branch, and invites him to come to Golden City, where he will personally see to it that he is looked after. Our boy frowns because he only just became friends with manager Kim, and now this guy is in his way. Jeong keeps selling. Out in this backwater there is nobody capable of appreciating him. Sign an exclusive contract, and there is an advance bonus and tax relief in it. The MC is not listening to a single word. Something on the man's face has his attention, and he asks whether that thing on his nose is a wart. It is, so he asks what his connection is to An Bok-deok, and Jeong laughs, delighted, because this stranger knows his grandfather. Of course he does. The man was an honorary recipient of the World Gold Medal, and Ji-jeong is his grandson. Our boy grins and says they really do have rotten genes, because he remembers the lab. Specifically, he remembers An Bok-deok, and what An Bok-deok did to him and the other children. He remembers glaring up at him, and he remembers the man with the whip in his hand explaining that a monster goes looking for its mother, even a human-shaped one. But this thing is a chimera. Its family is in the demon realm, so maybe he should just open a gate and throw it in. He remembers the man laughing and telling him to go on, beg mommy to come save him. And out of everything in that room, the detail that burned itself in was the ugly wart on his nose. Back in the present, Do-woon lets his mana out, and An Bok-deok's grandson goes down onto his knees on the floor of a slum alchemy shop. Then our boy asks him a question. So is he following in the family footsteps? Breaking people with power, taking whatever he wants the second his greed outgrows him. The man says he does not understand, and the MC advises him, in a tone that does not leave room for a second attempt, to think very carefully about the next answer. Does the TDA lab still exist? Jeong says he has never heard of it. So Do-woon asks whether he has heard of the illegal Chimera research lab where his grandfather worked as a senior researcher. Kim, standing to one side, cannot believe what he is hearing, because that is a gold prize winner they are talking about. Jeong recovers enough to say that one should not speak ill of the dead. His grandfather gave his entire life to research and to raising the next generation at the university. After he retired, he donated his whole fortune to the families of gate victims, and he received the Gold Peace Prize for it. Our boy laughs at that, So after killing that many children behind the curtain, the man decided to repent in public. Then he adds something else. He assumed an awakened being would live longer than that. He died early. Was that the injuries from going out of the window? And Ji-young freezes because that detail was never made public, and he asks how he could possibly know. Do-woon tells him he was the one who pushed him, because the man turned kidnapped children into chimeras, and because he threatened to throw them into the gate, so somebody pushed him first. Then he gives him a chance. Go home. Read about his grandfather, and about the TDA research lab. Learn all of it, and when the time comes, Do-woon will find him. Once the man is gone, the MC sits with it for a while. Because of all the people to walk through that door, it had to be An Bok-yeok's grandson. He was 9 years old when the biological experiments started. The monsterization began in his 20s, and the memories from that point onward are hazy, because he was in a world with no civilization and nothing to do but follow orders and instinct, without ever once being aware of himself or of why he was doing anything at all. A great deal of time has passed since then. The lab has probably changed its name several times by now. Then Manager Kim comes in beaming and thanks him for waiting, because the purified mana vessel water, infused with mandrake root, is finished. He hands over 2 vials, and our boy says the speed is honestly enviable. No wonder the man is an A+ class alchemist. That took roughly 30 minutes. Kim says the ingredients were exceptional. That is why it went so fast. Then he pulls out a calculator and starts working out what he owes for the leftover materials. And Do-woon decides this man is genuinely capable, and that approaching him was a good call, so he makes an offer. How about a contract? He will supply every ingredient needed for synthesis. Kim just does the synthesis. Kim stares at him and asks whether he means all of this, plus a contract. Our boy points out that Kim himself said this pile could buy an entire building. So is that not a good deal? And the manager bursts into tears. He is from the slums himself. When he was young, his parents took out a huge private loan and he told them he would clear it. And no matter how hard he pushed, he kept getting stuck in exactly the same place. How is he supposed to repay kindness like this? The MC watches him and thinks, so he is already worried about that. He is going to need this man later. So to settle him down, he says they can simply work together. Then he heads back, hoping everything is fine at the coast. It is not, because Ji-ah has attacked her brother, and Baeum is calling it his own mistake because he should have seen this coming. He calls her name and asks her to hold on, and the only answer he gets is a low growl. Then she throws him into the rocks, and he lies there thinking he was too late. Neri and Gu lean over him asking if he is okay, and inside his own head he tells Do-woon not to worry. He will keep his promise. The man already saved them once. Then he gets his wings up and goes at his sister, in tears, asking her to be happy in the next life. Both of them come in with claws out, and at the exact moment they are about to hit each other, an enormous jellyfish drops out of the sky and flattens Ji-ah. Baeum stands there with no available thoughts, and our boy, who threw the jellyfish, asks whether that was not supposed to just knock her out. Nari is thrilled to see him. Baeum is not, and complains that this is his little sister and asks why he is handling her like that, and Do-woon asks whether he has a better method of controlling her. He does not argue. He wipes his face and asks about the medicine. The MC holds up 2 vials and says he got it, exactly as promised. Evening comes in. Everyone sits around a fire grilling fish. The vials are empty. Ji-ah and Nari are asleep on a carpet. Then Ji-ah wakes up and the first thing she sees is a drooling child. She sits up holding her head and wonders whether this is a dream. Then she sees her brother by the fire with some stranger, and when the stranger looks over at her, she grabs herself in fright and demands to know who he is. The shout wakes Nari, who asks whether Aunt Sparrow is up yet. Ji-ah has questions about that title. Baeum cheerfully tells her to check her mana vessel, so she stops and looks inward. The vessel is normal, and her face has gone back to normal too. She asks what happened and who all these people are, and her brother asks whether she recognizes anybody. She wanted to meet him so badly. Has that much time really gone by? Her eyes go wide because she looks at the stranger again and finds the boy from the forest. Is that really number 17? Baeum confirms it, and she says, stunned, that he saved them again. At which point Do-woon turns to her brother and asks whether there is any red moss left. There is not. That was all of it for today. And Ji-ah says yes, that is definitely number 17. Zero empathy. Then she takes the mask off her head, smiles properly for the first time in a very long time, and thanks him for saving her. Then Nari spots a light on the water and gets excited, because things are glowing out on the surface. Ji-ah puts her mask straight back on because she is embarrassed, and explains that those are sea fairies, coastal monsters that live deep down and got that name because of how they look when they play. At night they come up to the surface to play, and when the sun comes up they go home. And if you follow the fairies, you find yellow sparkling quartz, which is the moment our boy realizes he completely forgot what he originally came here for. He asks how long until dawn, learns the night is nowhere near over, and decides to go for a swim. He has not been swimming in a very long time. Sometime later, Director Han calls a meeting and asks what exactly is going on with that mechanical creature, and where it is. The report is not encouraging. Around 10 B-class hunters ran into it in the forest region, and not one of them managed to catch it. Right now it appears to be hiding somewhere on the coast, and every A-class hunter who has come back from that area recently is suffering from amnesia, even though the creature's location data is still sitting on their tracking devices. Then he gets a call from An Ji-young. He picks up and remarks that it has been a while, and Ji-young, still furious, says he has a question for him. What does he know about a place called the TDA Research Lab? The director says he has never heard of it. Ji-young says it was an illegal lab that operated a long time ago, and the director cuts him off because he will not have it called a research lab. Professor Bakdeok taught him to be an honest researcher, and Han Myung-do will never forget the lessons of his dear teacher. He hangs up and sits there wondering why the man's grandson would suddenly bring up an illegal lab. Then there is a knock at the door and a researcher comes in beaming because it worked. Exactly as the director predicted, combining liquid metal with a mandrake produces a liquid metal mandrake. He presents the result and the director runs the logic. Mandrakes are monsters with an exceptionally developed sense of bloodline, and their sensory ability is extraordinary. Add liquid metal, which is extremely sticky. A chimera carrying both properties would find that mechanical creature faster than any tracking device ever built. So he waves his hand and orders the reward tripled, with the announcement placed among elite A-class hunters. The masterpiece of his life. He is getting it back, whatever it takes. Meanwhile, Baeum is standing on the coast thinking about Do-woon, and specifically about what a complete weirdo the man is. Last night he invited them over. He has an excellent cook despite the baldness. And Baeum keeps circling back to a conversation they had. He asked whether Do-woon lives in the demon realm too, and got a yes, along with the opinion that it is actually quite nice out here once you get used to it. So he asked why bother, when the man could simply go to the human world. And our boy asked him whether he genuinely wants to go back. Baeum swallowed and admitted he does not have many good memories of that life, although sometimes he does think about how much everything must have changed. Then Do-woon said something that had never once occurred to him, which was that the spell in his body might be removable. Baeum asked how, immediately, and got an answer. There is an alchemist named Kim. He is the one who made the purified water, so he is very capable. Do-woon wants him researching spells. All Baeum has to do is say whether he is interested, because failing to manage something and never once attempting it are not the same condition. And Baeum put his head down and started crying, and asked him why he always helps them when they have never done a single thing for him. Our boy told him the truth. Sometimes he looks at the twins and wonders whether there's anything in this world more important than survival, and he thinks that by helping them, he might find the answer. Back in the present, Baeum sees bubbles breaking on the surface and thinks that was fast. His sister comes out of the water holding 2 ropes and throws one at him. He asks what this is. She does not explain anything and tells him to pull. So he pulls and wonders why it is this heavy, and then the ropes go tight and an enormous net full of quartz comes up out of the sea. Baeum cannot believe how much they took. Then Do-woon and Nari surface and he grins at the girl and says he has not swum like that in years, and it was fun, and she agrees completely. The dive is going to stay with her. The sea fairy's house looked like a yellow palace down there. They can go back and swim there again, right? He confirms it. They climb out, and Baeum asks the practical question, which is how any of this is getting back to the forest. Do-woon is already working on that, and then an enormous shadow passes over them, because a parrot eagle has flown by. Nari is thrilled. Gi is not, and says the thing only looks cool from a distance, because up close she would change her mind fast. It stands 4 meters tall, it has a disgusting personality, and they generally go out of their way to avoid the feathered idiot. Then Baeum sees the smile on Do-woon's face and knows exactly what is about to happen. Our boy says he was only thinking they could use a truck, and it is perfect. Back at the house, time has passed, and Ji-seok is sitting in meditation with the mandrakes watching him work. He can literally feel his mana vessel expanding. At this rate, his dream of A-class is actually on the table. He is wondering when Do-woon will get back when something drops behind him. It is an iron mandrake, and it is furious, because it did not fall on its own. Ji-seok has never seen anything like it, and then a hunter kicks the thing and tells it to lose the attitude, or he will fix the attitude himself. Then one of them looks over and asks whether that is really Ji-seok. His friend says look at the bald head, obviously it is him. What is he wearing? Is he some kind of savage now? They laugh, and the hunter covers his shining head and realizes these are the same A-class thugs he ran into at the exam. And more importantly, what are they doing out here? 3 extremely serious mandrakes step in front of him. One of the hunters is surprised and asks whether those are wild mandrakes, and how much 3 of them would go for. Then he walks up with a friendly smile and asks whether they are upset about people entering their territory, and puts a hand out toward one of them, calling him a good boy. Ji-seok grinds his teeth, because these are Do-woon's mandrakes and he has to protect them. The eldest mandrake does not need the help. He stamps once, there is a roar and the villains get thrown across the clearing. They are still trying to work out where the earthquake came from, and the answer is that there was no earthquake. That was Jia and Bayum landing. She asks whether they are still around. He asks how many other houses she thinks there are in this forest. Obviously they are. Meanwhile, our boy is coming home on a parrot, which, because of the load, is flying very slowly, and Do-woon is starting to wonder whether he was a bit too harsh with the negotiations. He is genuinely a little worried about it. Back on the ground, Ji-seok grabs his own head in horror, because those are the disaster-level monsters that live on the coast. Then he remembers Do-woon and Nari went out there, and his stomach drops. Did something happen to them? Because if it did, he is going to have to team up with these idiots, no matter how strongly he does not want to. The two of them shove the hunters out of the way, walk up and ask whether he is by any chance Do-woon's chef, because the bald head matches the description. Ji-seok screams and backs off, demanding to know why monsters are speaking in human voices. Then he catches up with the sentence and asks whether they just called him chef and whether they know Do-woon. Bayum says of course they know him, they are friends, and Ji-seok's whole understanding of his own life shifts, because disaster-level monsters are this man's friends. What kind of life is he living? Then Bayum nods at the strangers on the ground and asks who these are, since they do not look like guests, and Ji-seok realizes this is his moment. He answers, with an extremely sinister grin, that they are thieves, and they came to steal Do-woon's mandrakes. The hunters go pale, because they know exactly what is coming. An hour later, the parrot crash lands in the clearing by the house, and Nari jumps down cheerfully announcing that home is best after all. Then the parrot collapses. Our boy asks whether it was really that hard, pats it on the head and tells it to rest, while Jia says she genuinely cannot believe he tamed that thing. Gu is so dizzy he slides off the back of the parrot down its wing, and says he has not flown that high in a very long time. Then he bumps into something, looks up at a hunter's boot, and asks what happened here. Do-woon asks the same thing, since there appear to be 3 A-class hunters lying around. Bayum says there was an attempt to steal the mandrakes, and our boy says the whole thing smells wrong. Then Bayum rubs the back of his neck, and says there is something he needs to tell him. He glances at his sister, she takes the hint, and she leads Neri off under the excuse of going to look at the waterfall in the gorge. Once they are gone, Bayum says it plainly. The lab is still looking for Kim Neri, and those hunters were almost certainly working on their orders. The MC understands immediately, because that is the same lab Ji-seok got his tracking device from. He knew they would send somebody eventually, and it looks like Nari is carrying a special tracking sensor that works even in the demon realm. But he and Nari were on the coast, so how did they end up here? Bayum holds up the mandrake and says it was this little guy. Do-woon takes it and asks whether this is a mandrake with liquid metal mixed into it, so that is how they tracked her. Bayum says he has heard liquid metal is drawn to its own kind, and our boy finishes the thought, because that is why this one came here. It was pulled toward the other one already living with them. Bayum adds that they were planning to head for the coast afterward, and he does not think they will stop hunting for Nari anytime soon, and the MC thinks he is going to have to come up with something. Then the mandrakes start calling him. They point at themselves, then wave their arms, and he works out what they want, because they are asking him to hand over their relatives, so he gives them the metal mandrake. Then the eldest brother waves a hand at him, menacingly, and points at his pocket. Our boy realizes he forgot. Then he wonders how on earth that thing knew what was in his pocket. He takes out the exhausted mandrake, and Bayum asks who this weakling is. He explains that it used to belong to an alchemist, who agreed to let it go. The man cried a great deal handing it over, but he knew it was the best thing for it. Then the mandrakes dig holes for the new family members, and the newcomers trudge slowly over, plant themselves in the soil, and sigh with pure bliss. Bayum remarks that these guys have wonderful camaraderie, and Do-woon says the lucky part is that they are not attached to territory. They will settle in quickly. By the way, where is Ji-seok? He should have been back by now. His answer arrives from the sky in the form of a very pitiful noise. Ji-aya comes down carrying Nari in one arm and Ji-seok in the other, and the hunter waves his arms with tears streaming and announces that he has finally arrived, then throws himself into a hug saying he was so worried. Our boy pushes him off immediately and asks what happened to him. Ji-aya sighs heavily and explains that he was thrashing around in the water until the fish started biting him. It was a terrible thing to watch. Ji-seok laughs awkwardly and says he wanted to treat the guests to some fish, and as usual nothing good came of it. Nari happily reports that Aunt Sparrow is cool because she pulled him out of trouble. Ji-seok tells them all to wait while he prepares something. Then he hears a long, lazy sigh right next to him. He turns, notices the 4-meter parrot he somehow failed to see, and screams asking where that came from. Do-woon says he will explain everything later, food first. Ji-seok leaves to cook, delighted, while Nari goes over to inspect the new tenant. She is very interested in the metal mandrake, so she touches its leaves with a finger, and they react, and her mouth goes tight in a way that has nothing to do with plants. Then the food lands, and the siblings are amazed, because on the table is Nam Ji-seok's signature kimchi curry. He is quietly extremely smug about it, because yes, it was made with store-bought curry and ready-made kimchi, but he added pork generously, plus a pile of vegetables, and he stirred it without stopping for a full hour so nothing burned. Everybody sits down. Baeom says it smells wonderful. Ji Seok waits for the verdict like a man on trial. Ji Aya takes one bite and asks whether this is it. The legendary meeting of East and West. Baeom says it is so spicy and so delicious, and then asks whether India and Korea are not both in the East. Do-woon smiles thinly and wonders whether the man is serious. Then he notices Nari sitting there with a sad face, not eating, and asks what is wrong. She says she is not hungry, no appetite. Then she leaves the table saying she is going to bed. He decides it is probably the metal chimera and thinks maybe he should give her a job, so she stops turning it over. Some time passes, and somebody steals a mandrake. Meanwhile, dinner finishes, and Baeom sits back with both hands on his stomach and says being a professional chef is genuinely cool because he has not eaten this much in years. His sister says she no longer feels like a bird, she feels like a pig. Our boy gets up and suggests a walk and fixing the fence while they are at it, and Ji-ah says he can leave the stone cutting to them. And then the MC feels something and turns around fast. Nari is standing in front of the open gates because she worked out that if she stays here, her uncle ends up in danger too. So she is going back where she came from. Do-woon runs for the house calling her name, and she holds the mandrake against her chest and says goodbye to her uncle with tears running down her face. She heads for the portal, and he catches her and asks where she thinks she is going. This is her home. Ji-ah and Baeom come around the corner and finally breathe out, and Nari throws herself into Do-woon's arms sobbing, while our boy thinks that children really do grow up fast, and that he is going to have to keep a much closer eye on this one now. They sit her back at the table, and with her eyes swollen from crying, she starts on a bowl of ramen. One bite in, she attacks the rest of it and tells Ji Seok it is better than last time. He says ramen is the only thing that saves you at night. Ji Aya says sharply that she nearly ran away from home, and if she ever tries that again, her big sister is going to teach her a lesson. Nari says she understands, and that it was her fault. She finishes the broth, sticks her tongue out, and complains that it is so spicy, so Ji Seok puts a carton of milk on the table and tells her to drink, because his mother always says that is the best cure for spice. Baeom is surprised, because they used to get given this in the lab. Ji Seok says he has more, so they can take that. Then he collects the dishes and tells the boss he will clean everything and get on with the work as ordered, and Baeom asks whether they should start on the quartz in the meantime. They head out, and after several bottles of milk, Nari apologizes to Do-woon for making him worry. He tells her she has nothing to apologize for, and privately thinks she is not the one at fault here. The people who made her and used her are. Then he asks about the coconut tribe, her friends there. What sort of people are they? She gets a little flustered, and while she talks, our boy is thinking about something else entirely, because when he takes the TDA lab apart, he needs to make sure none of them get hurt in the process. She tells him there were 3 of them, and they were close. He decides not to ask where the lab is. Ji Seok already knows, which makes him wonder whether his employee has finished the task he was given. Meanwhile, the employee is having the time of his life, because Ji Seok has decided to go and gloat at those hunters. He grabs one of them by the gag over his mouth, remembering that the boss said they cannot use mana yet, and rips it off. The man immediately starts negotiating. Wait, they can work something out. Let them go and they will thank him generously, because they have savings that could buy a house in the Golden City. And obviously nobody would ever hear a word about what happened. Ji Seok points out that a deal requires 2 equal parties. Then he grins and produces a black card, and adds that he is not the type to be moved by small change. The hunter is genuinely thrown and asks whether that is the high society black card, and where he could possibly have gotten it. Ji Seok says that does not matter now. What matters is that it is time to settle up for the promotion exam. The man nervously says that was a mistake, and the hunter asks whether he honestly expects that to work, because this is the same guy who called him a stubborn idiot who does not know when to quit. And who exactly is he? Everybody in their world knows what kind of scum these people are, so which is worse, failing an exam, or beating up the weak, taking their money, and lying to them? Then he takes something out of his pocket, forgetfulness pills. The boss handed them over personally. He does not even know how strong they are. The hunter knows because that dose is more than enough to wipe a memory clean, and Ji Seok tells him he wants that rotten personality to start again from 0. Then he tells him to open his mouth, and the man screams. The next day, Gu is out walking with Nari and Sasa, muttering about how hard it is looking after children, while our boy explains his plans to Baeom. Baeom asks whether he is serious. He is. He is taking Ji Seok and Gu with him, and while they are gone, Baeom holds the house and looks after Kim Nari. Baeom agrees. Then Ji Seok comes over in his good shoes and announces that he is ready, and the MC notices he is practically glowing and asks what happened. Apparently, Do-woon promised to introduce him to the alchemist. Maybe the man can solve his problem. Baeom works out immediately which problem that is. Then Jia asks whether they are really going like that, and suggests they disguise themselves, clothes, and Do-woon says that is a good idea, while Ji-seok stands there wondering why anyone needs a disguise to visit an alchemist. So Ji-ah takes the mask off her face and hands it over, telling him to at least wear this, and Ji-seok sees her face and stops functioning. His heart starts dancing. He puts a hand on his chest, wondering what is wrong with him and why it is hammering like this. Then he sees her smile and wonders whether this is what love at first sight looks like. For the record, Ji-ah is not smiling. She is punching her brother. Ji-seok drops to one knee in front of her and explains that he is an impulsive man, and when he decides to do something, he does it immediately. So he is going to ask directly, what is her ideal boyfriend? Do-woon and Baeom nearly choke and then settle in to watch, because the show is free. Baeom says she is the same way, so if you ask her directly, she will answer without thinking twice. Ji-ah considers it and says her ideal is somebody impressive who can dance. A noble peacock materializes instantly inside Ji-seok's head. Then she adds that, generally speaking, the fluffier the feathers, the better. That one lands squarely on the bald spot. He turns around immediately and tells the boss they need to go to the alchemist right now. Do-woon agrees and asks whether they need to stop anywhere along the way, and the answer is that he will do anything at all as long as they eventually arrive at that alchemist. Sometime later, an enormous portal opens over the city and terrifies everybody standing under it. Then a bird the same size comes out of it, and the entire street runs to report this to the guild. Ji-seok asks why they need the monster parrot, because people are getting scared. Our boy asks why they would walk. Then Ji-seok asks where they are going, and gets told that he is the one who should be answering that, which does not clear anything up for him at all. Meanwhile, Do-woon looks up and thinks that the sky is blue, and so is the bird, so they will call him Blue. Elsewhere, Han Myung-do has called a meeting, and the news is bad. Every hunter they sent came back with amnesia. He asks about the Chimera tracker, and a researcher tells him they lost it. The director slams his palm on the table hard enough to frighten the man, and runs the arithmetic in his head. If they do not find that mechanical organism, the government funding goes, the investments get pulled, and the people behind those investments do not let them walk away alive. Then the researcher nervously reaches into his robe and says they found something. It is an oblivion pill, with a note attached that says, "See you soon." That makes it worse. The director demands to know who dared pull something this filthy, and orders them to find it and bring it to him immediately. That will not be necessary, because it comes to him. Blue goes through the windows and straight into the meeting room, and the room fills with dust and noise. Our boy dusts off his clothes and remarks that the landing is still unstable because of the left wing. He will sort out the treatment after he clears the lab. Manager Kim can handle it. Then he looks around and asks who the lab director is. Now, rewind a little to just before all of this. Do-woon told them the institute sits on the middle terrace of Mount Haebong, and Ji-seok asked whether that meant somewhere between the slums and the Golden City. A little further out, and the flight takes them straight there. Ji-seok asked whether this was really a good idea, because maybe the boss did not know, not having been there. This is not some ordinary laboratory. They built a cyber organism. They were on TV. And besides, would that not be a crime, given the man is publicly an honest researcher? Our boy said, really? Then they will go and see what is actually in there. Ji-seok decided he must have some kind of plan. Then he asked about the bird's tail because something about it looks wrong. Do-woon confirmed it. Feathers do not grow on the left side, and it has been that way from the beginning. And that tail is exactly why Blue was driven out of his own flock and had to run. Then he saved the creature, so now it listens to him. The huge bird nodded, visibly delighted just to be spoken to. Ji-seok asked why bother training something that is never going to grow feathers and got the answer. Did he not notice? They are obsessed with beautiful tail feathers. When Blue used to look at those magnificent tails on the others, he was amazed by them, and that was exactly when those same others started attacking him. That is almost certainly why he got thrown out of the pack. They always went for the tail, and Ji-seok said nothing at all because he understands perfectly what it is like when the one thing everybody else has refuses to grow on you. Then our boy asked whether they were supposed to be over there. Ji-seok confirmed it, and Do-woon said excellent and told his bird to fly straight ahead. Ji-seok asked with rising panic, straight ahead into what? Blue accelerated to a speed that removed the option of asking follow-up questions, and the hunter started screaming, and Do-woon told him to hold on tight, because with that tail the landing was never going to be soft. The wind pulled snot and drool across Ji-seok's entire face. Then the explosion went through the building. Inside, office staff are asking what is happening and whether a war has broken out. One man covers his mouth to breathe and says the dust is making it impossible to see, and then Blue appears next to him and he screams, hits the floor and asks what a poisonous parrot is doing in here. Then both of them get wrapped in magical netting they cannot get out of, and they are still asking each other whether that is a spider web. Our boy walks up and remarks that it looks like almost everybody has been caught. Ji-seok asks again why they could not use the main entrance instead of coming in this way, and gets told that the lab director is normally on the very top landing, which makes our boy wonder what he might be doing up there. They ask whether this is the TDA lab, and one of the assistants asks whether they are human and who they are supposed to be. Do-woon says he is Nari's guardian, and the staff all start asking each other who Nari is, except one of them. That one says nothing at all, and the MC notices him, because dark magical power is coming off the man. Magic, apparently. There is something very strange standing in this room. Meanwhile, over in the Golden City, Chairman Unsu is having a conversation with his grandson at the Hunters Association. He asks how the B-rank preparation is going, and whether everything is fine, and warns him that if he fails this one he is out of the house. Baek-ho, sprawled on the couch chewing gum, points out that even his grandfather is still only S-rank, and that man runs the entire Hunters Association. He himself is barely past 20. Is that not a bit early? He should at least be getting pocket money out of this. Unsu says he was raised as an only grandson, and it shows. Then he mentions that he is 84 years old now, and maybe it is time somebody else took this position. Baek-ho tenses up, because here it comes again. And Unsu keeps going, because in his youth he watched awakened people throw themselves into fire for humanity, and he built the Hunters Association to support those people. He wanted to help protect the world somehow. Then he walks to the window and asks what is happening now. The awakened have stopped taking risks. Most of them are only interested in what pays. He is not saying that being awakened obligates a person to go and die. Chimera research was created in the first place to protect them, but hiring chimera hunters means paying the institute an enormous amount of money. That is the reality of it, and the poor districts are left with nothing. But hunters have to eat too. Can anybody really blame them? He simply cannot forget the heroes of the old school. A world where whether you live depends on money is wrong. In a time like this, the association should be standing stronger than ever. Instead, people chase positions and money, and where a chairman should be, they see a tool for a monopoly. And the man who awakened late and ranks low is treated as a weak chairman. Baek-ho listens to all of it without moving. Then Unsu remarks that he, Baek-ho, awakened young. And the grandson's jaw locks, and something behind his eyes goes very cold. Then a subordinate bursts in shouting for the chairman, saying it is Advisor Kim, and that a poisonous parrot has appeared in the slums, and it is urgent. Baek-ho asks, frightened, whether he said poisonous parrot. Unsu tenses too, and demands to know how that could happen with no signal for a spontaneous appearance and return, and where the hunters are. The answer is that they sent the notification out to the departments, and nobody is moving. And Unsu understands why, because it is a request from the slums, so there is no support behind it. He slams his fist on the table, orders every nearby research lab contacted immediately, and says he is going there himself. Baek-ho shouts that he is going too. Back at the lab, our boy reaches out toward the strange one, still unable to work out what is wrong with him, and binds him tighter with more threads. Ji-seok asks what is going on. And that is when the man's glasses shatter and fly off his face, and everything around him lights up in a hard red aura, and strange droplets are left across the floor. Ji-seok asks whether that is liquid metal. Gu says that is not possible. Could the man himself be a chimera? Every single person in that room, staff included, is stunned, and they start saying it out loud. Their director, a chimera, the entire time. The protagonist watches in silence. Then the chimera demands to know how he dares, transforms into something horrifying, screams, and asks what they have done to his lab. He is going to kill all of them right now. Our boy senses the danger and starts thinking, because this is the director. Liquid metal, the same as Nari, except this does not look like a standard mechanical being. Has he been running biological experiments on his own body? Then Gu speaks up and tells him he just did something incredible, because he managed to establish a mental connection. Do-woon is still processing that when the chimera's own memory surfaces, and in it there is a child lying on his desk, and the man is picking up a syringe with an expression that belongs on nothing living, saying that if it would only get him better results, he would do whatever it takes. So the protagonist goes at him with his fists and asks whether he has been kidnapping children for the experiments. The chimera, frightened, asks what children he means. The ragamuffins from the slums? That scum should be grateful for the chance he gave them. Our boy puts him through the floor, and stone goes flying across the entire room. The chimera makes a few last exhausted sounds and understands that his body is not cooperating anymore and that he urgently needs to liquefy. Do-woon asks whether he really just opened his mouth to say that. He can sit in his room for a while. And while he does it, the MC is genuinely amazed at the amount of mana in this thing. It is not a normal figure. He keeps the pressure on the chimera's face while the chimera silently begs him to stop, because the pain is unbearable, and then it starts folding in on itself, asking whether that is really his body, because something is pulling him somewhere. A moment later, there is a small ball lying on the floor. Ji-seok's mouth falls open, and he asks whether a human being just became a ball. Our boy picks the ball up and says he needs some information now. Would anybody mind? Or should he make matching balls out of all of them? The lab technicians do not object. Later, flying out, Gu mutters the summary back to him. So Bok Deok was once Myung-doo's mentor. Do-woon lays out how it started. Bak-yuk stole Han Myung-doo's research. Myung-doo then stole materials with living specimens inside them and disappeared. And then he turned himself into a chimera in order to make himself young again. Human greed really does not have a floor. Then our boy gets to the useful part. Myung-doo's memories contain nothing at all about the TDA, so the man genuinely knew nothing. But they will not be able to track Nari anymore, because her programming was built into this lab system, and he made the necessary adjustments to it without much trouble. He asks one of the detained technicians whether it is really just a matter of breaking this, and the answer is yes. From there it is Ji-seok's job. He will clean the whole thing up, especially with Blue on site, and our boy tells the man he has landed himself in a genuinely terrible position standing next to that bird. All that is left is Myung-doo's legacy, the results of the illegal experiments. He walks into the room and knows immediately that this is it, and when he brings his hand down hard on the floor, columns light up all around him. There are living creatures inside every single one. He stands there without a word, and Gu says out loud what a freak the man was because he really did use those poor dead children. What are they supposed to do now? Do-woon stays quiet for a long moment because he is remembering doctors standing over him. They were shouting that the object had no side effects and that it needed to be dissected so they could work out why. And another doctor asked whether he was insane. Did he want to slaughter the goose that lays golden eggs? Did he understand how much money there is in passing this one off as a natural awakened? And the first one asked what happens if it dies and there is not even a body left. Better to open it up now, while there is still some benefit in it. Our boy walks to one of the capsules, puts his hand against it, and says that at least now they can rest. Then he hears footsteps and turns around and asks whether that is the one. A fox has caught a familiar scent and says so out loud, which surprises the MC, because it can talk, and Nari never mentioned that. He whispers to Gu that he can smell Nari on this thing, and Gu says that is actually coming off him, since he washes every day. Then the protagonist asks whether it happens to know anything about a mechanical creature. The fox asks whether he has met her. Do-woon says they live together in the demon realm, so everything is fine. The fox's tail starts going, and it asks whether that is true, and then it cannot hold the tears back, because it has been waiting so long just to hear once that she is alive and well. And our boy realizes this is the best friend she talked about. It has to be him. Then he asks whether there is anybody else in here, turns around and tells them to come out right now. Several extremely interesting creatures come out from around the corner, and he asks whether that is a tree and an ant. When more of them emerge, he asks whether those are gophers or cacti. So this is everything that is left. They tell him yes. The combat types died, or got sold, only they are still here. And our boy realizes the lucky part, because they carry demon realm mana, so they can go back there without any problem. They ask astonished whether he is talking about the demon realm. Sometime later the laboratory has burned to the ground. Unsu arrives at the fire with his grandson and asks whether the slums were the target, and what is happening here, and why the institute specifically. Baekho turns and tells him there is a poisonous parrot, and somebody is sitting on it. That somebody is our boy, watching their reaction in silence. He asks whether the researchers were evacuated, and Ji-seok reports with a smile that they were, exactly as ordered, all of them safe, and that they confirmed nobody was left in the building. Do-woon thinks that is good, because the TDA lab was legal, and the scientists genuinely did not know what Myung-doo was. Ji-seok asks whether they should have at least erased the memories, since those people saw them. And our boy says that is exactly why they should not have. Ji-seok does not follow. Then the protagonist looks ahead and asks whether he knows those two, and Ji-seok realizes he is looking at the head of the Hunters Association, Unsu, and his grandson. Unsu, for his part, is asking himself whether that man is genuinely flying a parrot and who he thinks he is, and concludes they must have answered the alarm. And Do-woon wonders where he has heard that name before. Then he remembers. So he smiles, takes the little ball into his hand and drops it straight down. Ji-seok yelps and asks what he is doing, because those are high-ranking people. Down below, a hand reaches out and catches it. Baekho asks what that is, and says he did not think he would ever see one again. It is a mana sealing technique, and a seal like that can only be removed by mana, greater than the power of whoever created it. So who sealed director Myung-doo himself, and why? Then a man runs up shouting for the chairman, because fortunately there were no casualties, but the researchers are giving very strange testimony. They are saying Myung-doo was a chimera, and that the attacker is the one who got them out of the fire. Nobody can make sense of it, and Unsu goes still, because a thought has surfaced that he has not allowed himself in a long time. Is that child still alive? He looks up at the bird. Our boy tells Ji-seok they are going back to the slums, and the hunter asks whether that means they are finally visiting somebody who can solve his problem. Do-woon wanted to have a calm conversation, but with the association involved now, the noise is only going to grow. So what do? Sometime later, in the duty room at the Alchemy Association's slum branch, Manager Kim is fast asleep when a strange noise wakes him up. He wonders what that was, and whether somebody could really have arrived at this hour, and when he opens the door, there is a masked man standing there, whose mask has slipped off. Kim screams that there is a thief. The thief is Ji-seok, who pulls the mask off properly and tells him to be careful and keep the noise down because this thing is for his benefit and he should behave calmly, being a manager and all. Kim's mouth opens and closes, and he asks Do-woon what he is doing here at this hour. Nothing special. He should just come with them to the demon realm right now. Meanwhile, back at the house, Nari, Baeom, and Jia are sitting at the table planning the fence out of quartz and glowstones. Cut the quartz to size, drill the holes, insert the polished glowstones, and there it is. When Nari sees the first finished piece, she is speechless and tells Uncle Sparrow it is simply beautiful. Jia says she did not think this was even possible. Then they start discussing whether a longer fence would be even better and wondering how many stones that would take. And that is when Jia notices something and turns around, because a magical gate has opened behind them, and somebody is coming through. It is a small crowd of animals from the lab, teleporting into their forest. The others are surprised and ask whether these are really chimeras, and whether Do-woon sent them because they do not look dangerous in the slightest. Then Ji-ah looks off into the distance and sees Nari come tearing around the corner, and asks whether something has happened to her. Nari is frightened and does not know what to do. The new arrivals start asking each other whether everything is alright. Baeom asks what the problem is, and whether Sasa is scared of strangers. Jia says that is not it. What is happening out there is a negotiation about who runs this place. Baeom is surprised, because the tree apparently walked straight past Sasa. It seems to have taken a liking to something. Specifically, it likes their beautifully kept garden. It is a sapling, after all. Unfortunately, there are other new acquaintances waiting for it in that garden. There is a bright flash and a great many stones go flying, because the owners are already standing there, glaring at the new tree. And when all 5 of them line up together, they look like an actual gang. Meanwhile, our boy thanks Blue and tells him to go and rest, and Ji-seok stretches and says that home really is the best place in the world. Manager Kim looks up and starts shouting, "Did they build a house in the demon realm? Is this an actual home? Because surely a house out here is an invaluable object of study. There are 2 rooms in it. Which side is the door on, and what happened to the windows? Oh, this must be the back." Our boy grins and looks ahead, where a frightened Nari is standing behind a tree saying nothing at all. He asks whether she still has not made peace with her friends. Then he walks off and tells Ji-seok and Manager Kim to wait here, because he will be right back. When he reaches Ji-ah and Baeom, they ask whether he got everything sorted out. He hands the mask back and says he did, and by the way, it is a great piece of kit and very comfortable to wear. Ji-ah says she will make him one of his own. Then she asks why those 2 are so angry over there, because he did not exactly look after his garden, and they have been standing like that since morning. Was he not the one who brought these chimeras home in the first place? Neither side is giving an inch. Then an ant steps in to mediate. Apparently, the light on that ant's tail means a comrade is in danger, so the ant picks a side, commits fully, and launches itself at the sapling. It sails straight past and hits its own friend instead. Everybody watching is stunned. The ant comes to a stop, and then falls over with its head spinning. Baeom says the mandrakes work together beautifully. The sapling and the ant also did their best. And Do-woon says right, the initiation ceremony is complete, which leaves Nari and the fox, who is already walking up to the exact tree she is hiding behind. He keeps saying he could not be wrong about that smell. It is her, the mechanical being, and he sincerely asks her to forgive him. Nari goes red and bursts into tears and does not answer at all. So the fox says he will wait for her right here, and nothing gets said for a long time. Here is why. One day in the lab, Mo-young-do asked what exactly it meant that she was being pulled from raid combat, and his subordinate explained it. In training, she posts perfect results. In a real fight, she loses every time. She does not obey spells. She ignores orders. It appears to be a matter of character. Character, Mo-young-do repeated. They thought they had built a combat type. What they actually built is far too kind. People could kick her and scream at her, and say out loud that everything would be better if she did not exist, and she still would not harm them. Opponents beat her in groups and she does not fight back. At this rate, she is going to die, so they went to work on her. Myung-do kept telling her how stupid she was, and that if the personality was the obstacle, then they would simply repair the personality. His method was to move her in with a roommate, something weak, something she would get along with and eventually start listening to. That roommate was the fox, along with the other chimeras. And then, once they were properly good friends, he ordered the roommate to betray her. After some time, that is exactly what happened. There is nothing in this world that hurts like a friend turning on you. And when it was done, Myung-do asked her whether she understood now. There are no true friends. Next time they will kill her. So if she wants to live, she has to be the one who kills. That is the moment Nari broke loose and ran. Every person in that lab was screaming to catch her. And what she understood, running, was that they were her friends, and she was not going to hit a friend. A moment later she went out through the window, because all that mattered was getting away from that place. And when she reached the forest, she stopped by a tree and cried. And now the exact same thing happens. They hug, and Nari asks why she is crying, and the fox says he missed her. He missed her so much, and he is never letting her go again. From a safe distance, our boy asks whether they can go back now. Ji Seok says so that is what Nari used to be like. Fine. They will pretend they did not notice anything. Do-woon says the good news is they made up fast. Then Ji Seok asks how much longer they have to stand here like this, because his legs are swelling. Our boy says they can move whenever they want. He simply does not want to spook Nari. Then Baeum looks over and asks who that is standing next to him, because he looks like some chubby guy and the outfit is strange. Are those pajamas? The MC almost forgot the introduction. This is a Class A alchemist. Jia asks whether that is genuinely true. Manager Kim introduces himself and then asks, if it is not too impudent, whether he could take a couple of their feathers. Baeum and Jia are speechless and ask whether he wants their feathers and whether that would be difficult for them. The eagle says that is not it. It is just that, for some reason, this feels awkward. Meanwhile, back in the slums, Bong-soo is leaning on a table describing an absolutely enormous blue-feathered creature. Even the people from the Hunters Association ran. It was total chaos. Boss Park asks whether that is so, then admits she did not leave the shop, so she missed all of it. He mentions it has gotten colder, and she tells him not to even start, because it looks like winter is coming. Then he looks at the plate in front of him, surprised, and Park says that in weather like this, hot, sweet potatoes are exactly the thing. Just make sure he eats them with kimchi, or he will choke. Bong-soo thanks her with a smile, and says he is going to eat well now, and the moment he starts, the warmth goes right through him. She tells him not to be shy, because there is plenty. He asks, awkwardly, whether she is not eating, and Park sits down across from him and says she already did. Then she takes a proper look at him and says he seems pale. Is he sick? He says he does feel a bit ill, probably from overdoing the training. He is taking his pills, and he still has chills. It has been going on for 10 days now, and Park stops. Wait, is that not awakening? Fever, dizziness, body aches that go on for weeks. He turns 17 this year, right? Awakening usually lands right at the end of adolescence. He says, come on, awakening. That makes her genuinely angry, and she asks what is wrong with him, because awakening does not check your family line before it happens, and he has grown recently on top of it. Bong-soo asks her not to get his hopes up, because even if he did awaken, what use is he at a low class? She presses a handful of bills against his chest, and he grabs them startled. Park points out he does not have money for the trip. There is a Hunters Association branch in Silver City, and they can check whether he is awakened or not. Who knows? What if he really did? And what if he turns into an excellent hunter? Bong-soo gets embarrassed and thanks his auntie, and Park furiously demands to know since when she is anybody's auntie. So he tells her that when he grows up and makes something of himself, he will pay her back double, honestly, because of her. And Park asks whether he is doing this on purpose. Back at the house, Ji-ah is sitting there crafting golden logs with every creature on the property helping. Baeum says they call it the night shift, but honestly it is not hard for them. Then he comes over and points out that this idiot was told he could go home and is still hanging around. Ji Seok, who is now visibly blue from exhaustion, shouts that he is not training, he is helping them, so everybody should leave him alone. Our boy says fine, and asks whether they can keep working while manager Kim treats Blue's tail. Ji Seok says to hold on, because he has not had time to say the most important thing yet. They said they needed concentration, just wait a little. Do-woon asks whether he wants to go home, and Ji Seok smiles and says youth is here and now. Then the MC lays down the house rule. One way or another, if they are going to live here, everybody contributes, however small the contribution is. Understood? Nari says understood, and that they can be counted on. Baeum says having a role on a team is generally a good thing. Then Nari sets off after Do-woon and asks where he is going, and he says there is a lot of fence left and he wants one along the path too. She laughs and says that will be very beautiful. And then our boy asks whether she really made up with her friends. Nari answers flatly, yes, exactly. Then she asks whether he really has been to the coconut tribe. He says of course, which is when he realizes she is frightened that he has figured out what she is. And she is because Nari braces herself and starts to say that she wanted to tell him, because she is not from the coconut tribe at all. But he says her name and cuts her off, and tells her nobody is coming for her. He settled all of it. And here is what he has been thinking. They should become the coconut tribe themselves. She stares at him and asks what he means, and he explains it. They have a whole family here now, and a family needs a name, so they will call themselves the coconut tribe. She bursts into tears and asks whether he means it. The coconut tribe. Then she thanks her uncle for it, and he says come on, let us go, because everybody is probably waiting. And when Nari walks back in, she announces that they have returned, and that from this day they are the coconut tribe. Bayom says, judging by the face, the conversation went well. Ji-seok reports that they are back, and that the fence work is finished, and that the house looks even better now. Then the fox comes running to Nari, and she grabs him and asks where he vanished to without saying anything. Do-woon thinks that children do not grow up without fighting. Then he goes still, because something is coming at him fast. It is blue, flying straight into him, and then pressing up against him, embarrassed. And our boy says he really missed him too. The bird looks enormous, and it is absolutely a baby. Then he notices something on the tail. There are feathers on it. Kim strolls over grinning and says Blue got there first, since they only just finished treating him. Do-woon asks whether it went that fast, because regeneration usually takes considerably longer. Kim says he had a little of that red moss left. It goes into a supreme grade potion as a restorative, and when it is reinforced directly, the effect is stronger still. Our boy says, of course. A-class is A-class. Kim thanks him for that. While off to the side, Ji-seok has gone very quiet and then very loud, asking whether the feathers already grew back, and what kind of miracle that is, because he has just realized he has a chance. So he turns to Kim and whispers, "Sir, does he by any chance treat baldness?" Kim asks how he knows about that, because he has been developing a baldness cure for 10 years. Ji-seok's mouth simply stops working. Every alchemist alive wants that secret, and Kim says that when he finishes it, he will give it to him, because this is clearly serious business. Ji-seok drops to his knees and cheers, and tells the man that if he ever needs anything at all, just say the word. He is a substantially improved person from this moment on. Then Kim turns to Ji-ah and Bayom about their situation, because the protective weaves in them are extremely strong, and he has never seen drawings that ancient. But if they had a lot of mandrake fruit, he might be able to find a solution. And Do-woon looks up and asks whether he means those red berries. Kim asks whether he even knows what mandrake fruits are. Our boy has eaten them by the handful. Of course he knows, and they will be ripening in the garden soon. Kim shouts a question that is mostly noise. Do-woon explains he has been feeding the little ones. Good kid, that one. That is all he has been giving them. Then Kim turns and sees an entire field of priceless material and starts shouting again, because that is a whole bed of mandrake, and he has been standing near it healing them since he arrived and never noticed. So he explains what he is looking at. A mandrake absorbs energy, purifies it, produces fruit, and then eats that fruit to grow again, which is why the fruit holds the purest energy there is. But if you take the fruit by force, it spoils, and for a human it turns into a powerful poison. Good fruit only exists if the mandrake hands it over willingly. He tells them to work roots into the bed, because those will be needed. And when a mandrake starts fruiting, it hides in burrows or under rocks to get away from predators. Then Kim asks how he knows all of this, and our boy says he has been remembering things lately, because he goes back a long way with mandrakes. A very long way. Because once, when he was still sample number 17, they put him in the Highland Zone. He stood in front of the portal with lab staff watching, and the assignment was 10 days alone in the Demon Mountains, which did not strike him as difficult at all. If anything, the air up there was fresh. He had already climbed the snowy mountains, so he might as well take the summit. So he walked straight into the snow-covered forest, and then he heard something, and when it came again, he understood what it was. There was an ice-covered creature out there, and he asked whether that was a mandrake, and whether something had attacked it. He walked over and reached out, and the mandrake woke up and started screaming at full volume. Our boy remarked that it was surprisingly nimble for its size. Then it put its weight on its feet and shook, from pain and from cold, and he understood that this thing was in serious trouble and was going to collapse at any moment. And then he caught himself. Wait, did he actually feel sorry for it? He crouched down opposite it and reminded himself that this was only a monster, made of mana, and that this particular monster's mana was making him sleepy. So when the mandrake fell asleep, he asked whether he could take it along for a couple of days. That evening he was walking through the forest with a mandrake in his pocket, making ridiculous noises. He found a cave and decided to spend the night, and when he got inside, the mandrake played with him a bit. He got a fire going, and the mandrake perked up the moment it had mana in it. Ridiculously energetic little thing. Then he drank some water, and looked over, and found the mandrake staring at him with an extremely pitiful expression. So he realized it was probably thirsty too, apologized, and offered it a drink, which meant pouring water over it from every direction while asking it to please stop shaking, because it is making this harder than it needs to be. Anybody watching would have assumed it was dancing. Then the mandrake vanished. Our boy asked what it was doing. There was a bright glow, and it came back out holding berries. He asked where it got those. It muttered something in its own language and held them out to him, and he asked, surprised, whether they were for him. He probably should not have accepted food from a monster's hands, but he is resistant to most poisons, and the mandrake was completely sincere, so he ate them, and the taste was incredible, sweet, fragrant, somehow refreshing. He could feel it filling his whole body. Were those berries genuinely loaded with mana? Then he looked over, because the mandrake was shaking again, and understood what he was watching. The baby was growing the berries on itself. There were 5. then 6, and it held them out to him again. He asked why it kept giving them away, and there were still more coming, and whether it was trying to repay him for something. That one landed awkwardly, because he did not feel right taking any more, so he said that was enough and that he was full. Then the mandrake ate the rest, and our boy worked out the mechanic in real time. It was eating its own fruit. There were no seeds involved, so it eats its own fruit in order to grow. And he had been taking mana from it for that growth, which put him in debt. Then the mandrake climbed onto his leg, and he was surprised, because it had a perfectly comfortable corner of rock over there. Why come closer to him? What is this creature even for? He told it to sleep well. Nothing was going to bother it in here. And then, sitting in the quiet, he noticed something wrong. Monsters out in the distance, coming for the berries, because berries mean pure energy. And he decided that while it is here with him, he is protecting the mandrake. So he went out of that cave straight at them, and when the first one came in range, he closed his fist and threw it away. Sometime later, the two of them were sitting there laughing about something. Then he looked out at the sunset and realized it was time to go back, because he had to make it inside the window of the counterspell the lab put in him. And the mandrake understood what was about to happen and got upset. Dowoon asked whether it was time to say goodbye, and that is when he finally understood why he had felt sorry for it in the first place. It was a small lump of living material, abandoned alone in a snowfield, which is very close to a description of himself back then. If he left, it probably would not survive. He had to leave anyway because there was a spell on him, and failing to return on time would kill him. And if he brought it back with him, it would become a test subject, exactly like him. So he gave it what he could, which was a piece of protection made from silk thread. He told it to wear it properly, and not lose it, and not let it get torn. He tied the thread onto the mandrake's body, and the mandrake smiled and thanked him for it. Then he said he was going, and the mandrake ran after him screaming, and tripped, and went face first into the ground. Our boy turned around and told it to take care of itself, and apologized for not being able to protect it all the way. And the mandrake cried so hard that tears and snot ran down its entire face. Back in the present, Ji Seok and manager Kim are holding each other and sobbing. Baeom asks whether that is the end of it. What happened next? Do-woon tells them. He went back 2 weeks later. Something had come down, and where the cave used to be there was nothing. He went over the whole area and found no trace at all. He apologized to a mandrake that was not there. The others start guessing. Maybe it died under the rubble. Maybe something ate it. Then Jia points out that he gave it the silk thread. Did he not? So maybe it is still alive. Baeom agrees and suggests they go back to those snowy mountains, which our boy has already decided, because if it survived, then that settles everything, and it would be incredible if it actually made it. So they went back to the snowy mountains, and what met them was an enormous crowd of mandrakes, all of them following one familiar mandrake, still wearing a thread. He lived, and he is running an entire colony. Back in the garden, Do-woon turns around and finds several mandrakes looking at him with a question on their faces. Kim comes over marveling that he even built them a garden, and says the man really does adore mandrakes. Speaking of which, would he mind if Kim tried feeding them mana? Because he loves mandrakes too, if nobody knew that about him. Our boy says they probably did get hungry during the fence work. Then he asks whether Kim is sure about this, because these might be a little different from the ones in the human world. Kim grins and asks whether he can try right now, walks up, puts his hands out and asks them to be good about this. Alright? What manager Kim does not know is what got implanted into Do-woon years ago, and what came through very clearly when it did. And then he starts thinking that managers should really be more careful. A healthy mandrake is a mana drain with a face. The mandrake smiles. Light starts pouring off it, and Kim shouts that this is too little. Our boy understands the situation exactly, because these ones are spoiled rotten at home and have gotten used to his portions. Kim backs away saying, in a shaking voice, that this is too much. Then he exhales in relief and falls straight backwards onto the ground. Ji Seok runs over in a panic, shouting for manager Kim not to die and to please come back to his senses. Kim says he is not going to die, and laughs, because an A-rank alchemist just got taken apart by a vegetable patch. Nari is beside herself over the mandrake's behavior, and Do-woon asks whether they are a quality over quantity operation now. What incredibly high maintenance plant. Sometime later there is a meeting happening in the Golden City, inside the office of Congressman Park Woo-jong, and the rumor about that research lab getting hit is on the table. One of the women present works through what it means and lands on the conclusion that everyone invested in the mechanical beasts burned overnight. Her name is Jessica, and she is the CEO of the Gold Association. The meeting is about how they intend to cover the loss. Violet, sitting opposite, is vice president of the Red Brick Gang, and she says nothing at all. Next to them, Ki-bong, chairman of the Golden City Trade Association, holds his head and says that is not even all of it, because he has heard that Unsu of the Hunters Association has already opened an investigation. And Jong-hyuk asks whether they would really be frightened of one powerful old man. Ki-bong comes out of his chair shouting that this is rude, and Jong-hyuk asks whether he is wrong and suggests the congressman weigh in. So Woo-jong, sitting across from all of them, smiles calmly and tells them not to worry because he will handle it. It looks like some guy out of a secret facility surfaced. Misunderstandings happen. They happen from time to time, do they not? Then he snaps his fingers and tells them to relax, because within days they will have a brand new revenue stream. Reports have come in of a large mandrake settlement in the mountains. Jessica lights up and asks whether he means mandrake, an entire population. Jong-hyuk asks who could even reach the summit of the snowy mountains, because higher ranks avoid that place no matter what is offered. Or at least, that is the problem as everybody in that room sees it, because Woo-jong says they do not need the peak at all. The hunters only have to make it halfway, and every one of them will be A rank. Ki-bong stops him there, because the man just said the settlement was at the summit, and now he is not following. Woo-jong says one teleporter solves it, which is unprecedented, because not long ago, a boy walked into an office and said he had come to have his awakening level measured. The clerk asked his name, and what came back on the reading was an incredibly rare awakening. He grabbed his own head, embarrassed, and said his name was Bong-su. Sometime later, an entire team of hunters is moving up into the snowy mountains, and with that many A-rank hunters flooding the highlands, it feels like a stroll. They are only halfway up, and the monsters are already getting out of the way. The talk in the column is about the teleporter kid. His jump range is incredible. He is exceptional. He must be up near the expedition leader, since he is the key asset on this operation, so obviously he is being guarded well. What none of them knows is that he is not being guarded at all. He is walking right there in a hood, listening to every word of it, because the conversation moves on. He only awakened recently, so he has to be F rank. How did an F rank get through the gate? You need at least A rank for that. Another one explains it. The expedition leader is an enhancer, and the first one asks whether an enhancement would not simply kill an F rank. The kid agreed to that, and here is the answer, and it is worth hearing in full. He was not asked. They put puppeteer magic on him. He is hypnotized, and he will do whatever he is told. He is a street kid from the slums, and they sent him in to test what his rank could take, so if he dies, it does not matter. Then somebody asks whether this is really an order from above, and concludes that it explains the pay. Up front, the enhancer raises a fist and calls the halt. From this distance it should work. They begin now. The puppeteer puts a hand on Bong-su's shoulder, and a dark aura comes up off the boy. He puts his hand out toward the distance, and the hunters around him get interested, because they want to see what the exceptional one can do. Then his face changes into something that does not belong to him, and an enormous sound goes across the clearing. Mandrakes come up out of the ground everywhere and scatter in every direction. Bong-su stands there waiting, and so does the whole team, and every one of them is amazed that this is possible at that range. It must be the enhancement stacking onto a rare ability, and it looks terrifying. And just like that, Bong-su drops face first into the snow and does not move. And nobody looks at him twice, because the shout goes up asking why they are all standing around, since whoever catches a mandrake owns it. The hunters go after them and start locking them into cages with their abilities, and as soon as the first batch is secured, they are yelling at each other to hurry and prepare more. The mandrakes cannot get out, and then one of them climbs up onto a rock. He is the same one our boy met in a snowstorm a very long time ago, and he calls his entire army forward to fight the enemy and free their allies. The hunters start pointing. Wait, is the one in the middle giving orders? Is that the pack leader? The mandrakes go straight at the netting. It is chewing through the net. No, it is draining his mana. At this rate, the light net comes apart. Every hunter here is A rank, and a field of root vegetables is making fools of all of them, because whatever these things are, they absorb mana extremely well. Then the expedition leader's veins stand out across his body, and he shouts that he is an awakened being who does not use mana at all. Everyone else is too busy being shocked, because the mandrakes are still tearing themselves loose. The pack leader keeps calling orders so the others can escape, and that is when the hunter commander walks up to him and works out what he is looking at. So this is the pack leader. He would like to crush him, except this one is too valuable. So he will only beat him, not to death. He swings the sword. Or at least, that is how it was supposed to go, because our boy catches it and tells him to stop waving that thing around. Then he hits him hard enough to send him across the clearing and kick a wall of dust into the air. The hunters have no idea who this is. Nobody recognizes him. Could the information have leaked to a competitor? That is impossible, because this came as a direct order from above. Do-woon remarks that they are all extremely noisy. Then a dark aura starts coming off him, and grown A-rank hunters scream and go down onto the snow. And the mandrake leader sees who is standing there, and says something to him in his own language with tears running down his face. Watching from up the slope, Baeom asks whether an entire crowd of hunters just came down on them, and Jia confirms it, and asks why there are this many mandrakes here. Then both of them go still, and Jia asks whether that is really him. Do-woon says yes, it is. The mandrake's whole body is shaking, because that is the same silk thread, still tied on. Back then, our boy was 15, different clothes, much shorter. The mandrake runs into his arms crying, and when he catches it, it goes stiff, and then gets embarrassed, and then keeps crying into him anyway. And Do-woon thinks the thing behaves exactly like a puppy. Then he looks up and finds an enormous number of mandrakes approaching with very unhappy faces, and asks whether these are friends. The leader jumps down out of his arms and says one word in his own language, and the whole crowd backs him up and starts talking at once. So our boy understands. He really did become the leader of his flock. Then the mandrake's whole body shakes again, and Do-woon asks whether he is standing on tiptoe. Is he trying to look taller? He has learned how to express himself. He is exactly the same otherwise. Jia and Baeom come down the mountain, and Baeom confirms it, because there is the thread. Who would have thought he was alive? Then he asks whether Do-woon plans to raise this one in his garden too. Our boy scratches his head and says he would not mind the garden at all. But this one already found his friends, and he would not want to be separated from them either. Better to let them go now than to be disappointed later. Baeom asks what they do about those, since they clearly came for the mandrakes, and Do-woon agrees. They need to be driven off. Then he turns around and stops dead. Because Bong-soo is lying unconscious in the snow, he picks the boy up and asks what he is doing here. Baeom asks whether they know each other, and points out that this is still a child. So what is he doing in the demon realm? Do-woon says he showed him around the slums not long ago. But did he actually awaken? Because his condition is terrible. Jia confirms that the energy on him is awful. He is a teleporter, and he awakened very recently. And the mark on his hand is an enhancement. One line means 1 day. He has just under 3 days left to live. And then everything lines up for our boy at once. If the mana mixed into Bong-soo matches, then the enhancer is the man on the right. And next to him is the puppeteer. They wanted the mandrakes, and they did not dare climb to the top of the snowy mountains themselves. So they took a child who had awakened days ago. The commander feels the aura coming toward him and understands that this is not something they can handle. He cannot even estimate the level, so he starts talking, in a voice that will not stay steady, offering to hand over some mandrakes if the man wants mandrakes too. Our boy hits him hard enough to open a crater under both of them. Then he says they all look like a rank and he only has one question. When the man walked a 17-year-old boy through that gate, what exactly was he thinking? Something along the lines of, he is an orphan from the slums, so use him and throw him away. And they have almost certainly split the money already. Fine. In this world, the law of force rules. Maybe they did not commit a mortal sin, but then he can do the same thing to them, right? So he proposes a little fight, nothing fatal. Sometime later, the mandrakes are lined up and Bong-soo is laid out on a large rock, and our boy sits next to him without saying anything. He is thinking about the day they met, and about a kid wearing weights on his arms and legs, who explained he was building stamina because he wanted to get as strong as him. So he tells him to hold on a little longer, and then he will definitely save him. Bong-soo's body convulses, and his mouth opens trying to pull in more air. And then our boy hears shouting, turns around, and finds that help has arrived, because Jia is coming in with manager Kim, who is yelling Bong-soo's name at the top of his lungs. A moment later, Kim trips and goes face first into the snow. Do-woon watches this happen, and when the man gets back up, he asks him what he is doing in the demon realm. Details later. First, is the boy curable? Kim runs a magical seal over the body, and then his face drops. This is not a healing problem anymore. The boy has burned through far too much life force. He could pour the best potions in the world into him now, and none of it would matter. Then he asks why this poor kid fell for a trick like that. But our boy has caught something. Life force. He might have a way. Kim asks what he means, and Do-woon points at a seal he has already drawn into the snow and says this should do it. He scanned it a very long time ago. Kim looks at it and asks whether that is an ancient transmutation circle, the kind that pulls mana out and turns it into life force. Because pulling mana out artificially is lethally dangerous, and the state banned it. On top of that, it would need a colossal amount. They would probably have to drain every hunter present, and if it fails, there is no guarantee anybody survives. So Do-woon tells him to extract his. Kim asks him, frightened, to repeat that. Our boy says it is fine. He has done it before once, and he has no interest in owing his life to freaks like these, because he remembers lab technicians standing in a circle around him, saying that Subject 17's mana output exceeds the standard and is effectively unmeasurable. That if they harness this subject's nearly infinite mana, they will build the first life-extending transmutation circle in history. He laughed at them. Then he blew up several offices, and the technicians went out the windows. He did not like the researchers' motives, so he destroyed all of it, but the circle itself was flawlessly designed. So he takes his shirt off and asks whether they should start right now. Kim moves in behind him, sets his power going, says he is beginning the extraction, and presses the magic circle against his back while thinking about the boy on that rock and telling himself that for Do-woon's sake, if nothing else, this has to work. Within seconds, everything around them lights up, and an orb forms on the protagonist's back. Kim is astonished, because life force is actually materializing. It is working. All that is left is getting it into Bong-soo. Then comes the shock, because there is a bright pop and manager Kim finds himself surrounded by mandrakes. He asks, unsteadily, what is going on with those guys? And our boy realizes they think Kim is attacking him. They start biting the alchemist from every angle, while he shouts that this is a misunderstanding and begs them to calm down. His own mandrake is trying extremely hard to protect him. He is still going to have to send it home. Kim keeps screaming for help so that he can save somebody. A moment later, the liquid is ready, and he tips a few drops into Bongsu's mouth. Everybody waits, and the mark on the boy's hand starts disappearing. Kim says the breathing has evened out, then shouts that they did it. Their Bongsu is going to live, and all of it thanks to Do-woon. Baeum says the whole thing is honestly strange, and our boy rubs the back of his head and agrees, because who would have guessed that an experiment they ran on him would one day let him save somebody's life? Things like that do happen. Kim says the boy still needs medicine and rest, and that as soon as he is up, Kim will take him back to his place and keep an eye on him. Baeum asks how they are getting through the gate, since the seal has already been removed. Do-woon tells him not to worry because he will put a protective barrier on them, and he can do it right now. Naturally, something else occurs to him, because Manager Kim was right. That technique is an alchemical seal the state banned a long time ago, and using it to extend a lifespan sits very close to the line between good and evil. So the moment they finish extracting the hunter's mana, he is erasing their memories. Kim scratches his head and says he understands completely, and that it really is better if nobody knows a seal like that exists. Then he screams, because he has just heard the rest of that sentence. Extracting the hunter's mana? Our boy says yes, the same way. Let them pay for looking the other way. They still need the gate, so the men get demoted to Class D, and honestly that mana was going to waste anyway. Baeum thinks that is Do-woon, no question about it. He was never going to let them walk. Kim asks whether they should at least adjust the memories. Off to one side, Jia is sitting next to the enhancer, watching him lie face down without saying a word. And Do-woon says no. He is letting them go this time. People do not change at the snap of a finger. Any minute now, they will follow their father's fine example and simply stop sinning. Surely, Baeum says, if that is the decision, then so be it. Our boy did consider simply silencing all of them. Then thinking about it more, he decides it does feel wrong to let them off this lightly. And that is when the idea arrives. He asks whether they could build a laboratory out here themselves. Baeum asks whether he means a laboratory up in the ice mountains, and Do-woon says yes, because Class D bodies can hold out here for another day or two. Manager Kim gets a lab of his own. Why not? Kim goes red with happiness and stands there clenching his fists, and asks whether that means his own personal lab in the demon realm, and then runs off to get everything ready immediately. Our boy watches him go and decides they can lean on him more often now, because he is tired of wandering into the human world. Then he flags the practical problem. Those hunters are not going to hold still once the extraction starts, so somebody has to watch them. Baeum says that is not an issue, and asks where he is going. Do-woon reaches into his pocket and takes out a mandrake lying there perfectly comfortably, and says he needs to take this guy home. So Blue puts them down on the snow, and when our boy walks up, he asks him to wait a minute. He takes the bag off and opens it, and mandrakes pour out and scatter in every direction. He watches them go and remarks that they are having a great time, human or monster. It makes no difference. Everybody is happy to be home. The pack leader is sitting on his shoulder smiling, and then Do-woon picks him up, and the mandrake looks ahead with a question on his face, because when he sets him down, they both understand it is time to say goodbye. He cannot keep carrying around the leader of a flock just because it is convenient. The mandrake turns to look at him, confused, and climbs straight back into his arms. So our boy tells him it is not goodbye forever because he lives in the demon realm now too, and they will come and visit. Then the mandrake puts out a hand and runs off into the distance. Do-woon turns and asks where he has gone, and the mandrake looks upset and says something, and our boy asks whether he is being invited along. So he follows, wondering whether this is the opposite side from the flock's lair. They reach a specific place. The mandrake makes a new sound, and Do-woon asks whether this is it. They go into the cave, and it is almost exactly like the other one. It has not been abandoned. It is clean, and the tracks show it gets walked often. Is there a crevice in here, the same as the one where he grew berries? The mandrake points straight at it, delighted, and our boy asks whether he found this place himself. Then he turns around, because the mandrakes have followed them, and asks whether they are here for their leader. One of them, a mandrake with a mustache, looks at the leader. The two of them hold that look without a sound, and then the leader takes off his headband and hands it over. The old mandrake is overjoyed and embarrassed at the same time, and the previous leader puts it into his hands without any hesitation at all. Our boy understands what he just watched, and asks whether he really gave up his position for this. Is he sure? The mandrake looks away and does not answer, and then cries and confirms it. Sometime later they have a fire going in the cave, and they are sitting together, and Do-woon smiles and says he understands everything. Everybody chooses where they live. He looks up at a sky that is dropping snow onto both of them, and decides that if this is what he wanted, then it is fine. Back at the mountain camp, Bong-soo starts moving on his rock. He opens his eyes and asks what in the world that is, because Baeum is standing over him, wearing a terrifying mask. He works out where he is, shouts, and jumps up, and Jia and Baeum note that he recovers fast. He stares around asking whether that is a monster, and Jia tells him welcome to the demon realm, kid. He puts it together and simply stops functioning for a moment. Then he turns and looks off into the distance for a long time, and Jia decides he is still unhappy about something and hopes it is not them. Bayum says this is probably his first time here, and he is a kid who just came back from being dead, so of course he is in shock. Bong-soo keeps staring at the ground because he is remembering the clerk in that office telling him he had awakened. He was stunned, and she congratulated him, and then he ran out of there, thinking that she had been right after all, and that he really wanted to go and tell her. Except he never made it out of the building, because a guy in a hood called to him in the corridor and asked whether he was another awakened. He said yes, and asked who he was, and the guy said he had teleportation, right? He was congratulating him because he is a hunter candidate now, and he can call him senior. Then he pushed a soda into his hands. Bong-soo looked at it, and the guy explained it was a welcome drink, and he should finish the whole thing, because it is good for the mana. Bong-soo was delighted. He thanked his senior, and he drank it. Now, sitting on a rock in the demon realm, he grinds his teeth and tells himself this was always how it was going to go. What kind of hunter did he think he was? He is a street kid out of the slums. Then he thinks about the woman who pressed the travel money into his chest, and he holds his own head and very nearly breaks. Meanwhile, our boy is flying back on blue with a mandrake riding in his t-shirt, and he looks down and sees somebody hauling enormous logs, which means construction on the lab has already started. When he lands, Bayum asks whether he is back, and Do-woon asks whether they have squeezed the mana out of them yet. They finished fast. Then everybody got bored of standing around with nothing to do, so they started building. Some of them are moving material, others are leveling the platform and raising the frame. Bayum expected resistance when the extraction started, and says they were lucky the men came to their senses in time. Then he gives the actual reason. Gia is the one managing them. She is sitting on one of their backs, riding him like a work animal and calling all of them idiots. Down in the work line the hunters are talking. So a kid from the slums nearly died, and their answer was to drain the mana out of everybody here, all the way down to Class D. He spent 20 years getting to A class. All he wanted was to make some money. Why is he the one getting all of this? Kim ignores every word and keeps extracting, and when the man collapses on the floor, Bayum says next. Then the hunters start talking properly, and one of them asks what the other is proposing, since there are 2 disaster-level monsters here, but the big one has dropped out of sight, and they are A-class too, so if they all got together at once, then maybe they could. Jia kicks him in the head and his nose opens up. She is furious, and she asks him, together what? After a while she settles down, and Bayum observes that his sister has a difficult personality. Kim watches all of this and says absolutely nothing. Then Jia tells them to listen to her. She may not understand some things, but she will fight for her people. Did they all catch that? She stands in front of a row of broken opponents and tells them not to mess with her, and to decide right now whether they surrender nicely or get destroyed. She looks terrifying enough that they all agree to hand over their mana obediently. Then she turns around and screams asking who said anything about resting, because at this pace they will not finish by tomorrow. Do-woon watches her with a smile and says Jia really is scary like this. The hunters apologize to her immediately, with a truly impressive number of lumps on their heads. Bayum says at this rate they will be done quickly, and suggests they simply leave the lab to this crew, and our boy agrees because they clearly know how to build, so he is counting on them. Then Kim comes over to say he is back, and the mana has been disposed of, and Do-woon thanks him for the work, and asks how Bong-soo is doing. Kim scratches his head and says he woke up a little while ago and is recovering already. He just looks depressed. Does Do-woon want to talk to him? Our boy hears that and says nothing at all. A moment later he walks up behind the boy and asks whether he is awake already. Bong-soo turns around, surprised. That is Do-woon, right? He does not answer. Our boy tells him to drop all of it and not make things complicated, and while he says it he is studying the kid's face, because the bangs are hanging differently. Is that from being that close to death? Did his mana core grow? Did that happen because of him? He is going to have to find out. Then he asks him straight out why he looks like that, because he just got brought back to life and he seems miserable about it. Bong-soo lowers his head and says he simply feels like he is no good for anything. Park believed in him. She pushed the travel money into his chest, and he went and trusted the first person who spoke to him, and now he does not know how to live. Then he starts sobbing. Our boy is quiet for a moment. Then he says the kid's name and tells him to come with him. The hunters who have been listening to all of this turn around. Do-woon walks over, grabs one of them, a man in a strange pair of glasses, and asks whether this is the one. Then he punches him and the glasses come apart, and the man goes across the ground, and Do-woon lays it out. This is the man who walked up to him, lied to him, and put a puppet spell on him. So if he wants, he can kill him for it. What does he say? Bong-soo walks up while the man shakes on the ground and says nothing. Then he lowers his hand and says no. There is no need. He is alive. This guy is finished anyway. What would be the point? People like him are going to keep turning up, and they are everywhere. What he needs is to get stronger so that nobody would ever dare treat him like this again. Our boy smiles and says exactly right, then tells the man on the ground to get back to work, because he is only alive thanks to Bong-soo. He gets up covered in blood and thanks him. Then Do-woon lays out the plan, because Bong-soo is starting mana training with manager Kim. The boy is stunned, and Kim grabs him by the shoulder and says he is from the slums too, so he is going to help him. Baeom asks what about it. He is from the slums as well, and he is not ashamed of it either. Ji-ah laughs, because whatever face Baeom thinks he is making, it is not a comforting one. And Bong-soo bursts into tears because nobody has ever backed him like this in his life. He thanks all of them, and throws his arms around manager Kim. Our boy watches it and thinks that if this kid gets trained properly, he ends up stronger than GCO. At which point, the mandrake in his pocket starts celebrating. Baeom notices and asks whether he actually brought that mandrake back with him, and whether the creature is wearing a new thread. Do-woon confirms it. He handed the old thread on to another mandrake, because apparently the thread is what marks the leader. Whoever takes it becomes the leader, and this one he is keeping. Ji-ah asks whether the monster gave up its own authority voluntarily, because she has never heard of that happening. Then our boy says he wants to head to the forest lands, so he can show this little guy his home. Baeom tells him not to worry about the lab, and to say hello to Nari and the workers, and Do-woon says he will pass on everything, and takes off on blue. Bong-soo watches him go, thinking that this man came out of nowhere, helped him, and has now saved his life. What kind of person is that? Baeom turns to him and calls him a weirdo, and when the kid asks what he means, he explains it. That man had nothing, which meant he had nothing to lose. And a person with nothing to lose has nothing to fear either. He spent his entire life being used. So the weirdo went and built a house as far from everybody as he could get, in the demon realm, and decided to live in peace. Then our boy arrives back at the house where Ji-seok, Nari, and the rest are making a lot of noise, and he has no idea why. He raises a hand, waves at them, and asks whether everybody is alright. Ji-seok spins around and shouts his name. Nari turns too, and asks her uncle why it took him so long to get back to her, and there are tears in her eyes. Do-woon asks what happened. Gu and Sasa are missing. They have not been seen since morning. She and her uncle searched everywhere, walking through the forest, shouting for them, telling them to come and eat. Not at the waterfall. Not in the forest. Our boy's face changes, and he starts working it. There is no sign of an intruder anywhere. There is no foreign aura. Has anything unusual been going on? Ji-seok hesitates, says he feels like a snitch saying this, and then says it. Sasa went to fight the mandrakes again, and lost again. 4 fight, 4 defeats. Whenever Do-woon is not around, that snake is picking fight. Recently he even climbed the sapling and got his own back on somebody. He seemed angry about all of it, and after that he spent the entire day asleep. Nari confirms it, because Sasa really has been sleeping constantly lately. And our boy stopped, because sleeping at every opportunity is a symptom. Could that really be happening to him already? Is it not too early for him to molt? A few hours earlier, Gu is up in the air when he hears something, looks down, finds Sasa, and knows from the walk alone that something is wrong, because Sasa is doing the routine again, approaching the plant. Every single chance that snake gets, he tries to pull the leaves off a mandrake. So is today the younger one again? To nobody's surprise, the mandrake laughs, and Sasa rolls backwards in fear, and every mandrake in the bed wakes up, and the snake finds himself completely surrounded. The courage is admirable. The matchup is not. Sasa sees the faces around him, and a moment later they are on him. He rolls several times and ends up with his head buried in the dirt. Then he starts crying and shaking with anger, and a petal appears in front of him. Gu has come over, and he asks why the snake needs that when there is grass everywhere. Sasa keeps circling the flower, so Gu tells him to eat it, because he picked the one with the most mana in it. Sasa eats until he is full, and is absolutely delighted, and Gu asks whether that is how it feels when the worker cooks for him. Then he freezes, because the strange part is Sasa's skin, and the fact that it is bulging. Is he about to molt? And a molt is an ordeal no easier than hatching. If the temperature and the humidity are wrong, he can die inside a shell he never gets out of, and nobody can help him directly, because any outside contact during a molt can cause an unwanted mutation. Sasa gets to his feet and makes a strange noise, and Gu works out that the molt is starting soon, and the snake is too small, and may not have the strength to break the shell on his own. He needs to be moved somewhere suitable immediately, so Gu goes straight up into the air, screaming to ask whether anybody is here. Ji-seok is in the garden filling a bucket with water. Nari is off running through the forest on her own business. Gu cannot find anyone, and he needs somewhere warm and damp right now, and even if he found them, he could never explain this to Nari or to the workers. He wonders when Do-woon is coming back. Sasa looks up at him with a question on his face, and Gu says there is nothing to be done, picks him up, and says he is going to have to carry him there himself. It gets dark while he is still dragging him. Gu tells himself it is only a little cave behind the mountain, while quietly counting how many times on this trip he has nearly died. At this rate, saving Sasa is going to kill him. Then he finds a good spot, lands, sets the snake down, and says this will work. and then he hears a scream and goes rigid because bats are coming in, a whole cloud of them. Magic beast. Gu yells, asking where they even came from. Then wraps Sasa up in his wings and tells him not to be afraid, because he is going to protect him. Then there is a bright flash of light, and just like that, Do-woon has found them on his own. Gu asks how and gets told mana, and immediately objects, because the forest is enormous and searching by mana is extremely difficult. Our boy says at that distance it is possible. Also, he knows Sasa's aura. Then he looks at the shell and confirms it. This one really is about to molt. Gu says Sasa is safe now, and asks whether Do-woon wants to pick a better place for it. Sasa hides behind a rock, and our boy asks whether he likes it here and reads the conditions. The humidity is right. It is a little cool. Maybe he should bring the temperature up. So he pushes his hand deep into the stone, and Gu says it is warm now, and good, almost like a volcanic zone. Then Gu raises the real question, because do creatures this small even molt? Sasa has barely grown at all. This looks more like a form of accelerated evolution. Do-woon asks what he means by accelerated evolution, and Gu explains it. For monsters, molting is a survival fight. The demon realm is a place where everything fights for its own life, and Sasa lost to those mandrakes over and over again. He must have understood that this could not continue. That survival instinct is what triggered the acceleration. So does that mean he comes out of this stronger? Gu thinks so. On top of that, he is a rare species, and nobody has any idea what he will be like afterward. Our boy looks at the snake and admits he is genuinely curious what comes out of this. But the real surprise comes a moment later, when light fills the whole space, and Gu asks what that is, and Do-woon's mouth simply opens, because out of that crack in the stone comes an enormous flower, growing out of Sasa's head. He walks out of the rock thrilled with himself, and says something in his own language. Gu asks what kind of flower that is supposed to be, and our boy looks at the plant and says it seems worth keeping an eye on. But first they are going home. Back at the house, Nari runs at him shouting to know where he has been, because if he is leaving, he could at least say where he is going. Gu flies ahead of him shouting that there is no reasoning with her, and she chases him. Ji-seok says how lucky it is that they were found, then looks at the snake, and asks whether Sasa is really okay. Do-woon nods and says he will understand in time. For now the little guy is probably exhausted from molting, and should sleep. Ji-seok says that when he wakes up, he will put together something to tempt him with. Then our boy hears a noise behind him and says exactly. He turns to the mandrakes, drops to one knee, and starts pushing energy into the ground, because he has been neglecting them lately and they are owed some mana. Then another mandrake climbs out of his pocket, and he announces that they have a new friend. The others look genuinely pleased, and he notes with relief that the welcome went well, because he had been worried this one would start a fight over the leadership spot. So he holds the newcomer out to them and asks how it is going, and points out that this is his garden now too, and asks whether he likes it. He decides the youngest one is the happiest of all of them. Then he is surprised because the little one has no intention of getting off him. It has both arms around his hand. He starts wondering whether he needs to buy a carrier. Ji-seok comes over scratching his head and asks whether that is the new mandrake, and our boy says he told him so. Yes, the one they had forgotten about for years. He ran into him by pure chance up in the snowy mountains. Ji-seok says meeting again after all that time is a real fateful coincidence. Then Do-woon looks up surprised, because Nari has an opinion. In her view, he clearly adores this one, so he will simply have to carry it around and take care of it. It is just like a baby, so it needs padding. He asks what. She asks whether he genuinely does not know what padding is, and then demonstrates on Gu, like this. When you lay a baby down, you pat it with the flat of your hand. Gu shouts at her to stop and to get her hands off his head. And our boy looks down at the mandrake sitting in his hands and thinks that maybe he should call him Doduk. Doduk? Then Jia flies in and asks whether everything is all right, and Nari spots her and shouts for Aunt Sparrow, and asks whether the lab is finished. Ji-seok goes red, thinks her name once with enormous feeling, then bows and greets her and hopes she has been well. She says, yeah, sure, chef. It has been a while. And Ji-seok replays those 4 words in his head on a loop with his eyes lighting up, then clenches his fists and swears that no matter what happens, he is getting that chef certificate. Then Jia says the lab is already done, so she came to give them the tour. Our boy asks whether they really finished it that fast, and Ji-seok shouts about the lab that Jia built and says he wants to see it too. And Nari agrees, and so does everybody else. Then Do-woon points out that Sasa is molting and they need to watch his condition and it is already late, so maybe tomorrow. Everyone agrees. Ji-seok announces he will cook something excellent in that case. And Nari says she is going to pick out warm clothes for the trip. Night falls, and Jia takes up a tree branch, and then looks down at the flower beds and is confused, because the mandrakes have gathered around Sasa and are reaching for the plant growing out of his head. Then one of them lifts him up over its own head, while the others dig a hole, and naturally they plant him in the ground. He tries to lunge at them in response and discovers he cannot move at all, and starts to panic. Our boy walks up and says so that is why he changed so much. Nari, standing next to him, asks her uncle why Sasa became a flower pot. He puts his hands on his hips and says it looks like the snake disguised himself as a plant to get close to the mandrakes. Jiaya comes down and points out that the mandrakes went ahead and planted him anyway. Sasa makes an extremely irritated noise. Gu shouts, asking why the thing is eating that, and Duwoon asks whether it is really that offensive, and says fine, he will get him out of there. Then everybody should go to bed. The next day they all dress warm, and Nari says wow, this is amazing, because they are walking up to a tall building, and Ji-seok is astonished that the siblings designed it themselves. Nari runs ahead and our boy says it is well made, and she reports that there is even a handle on the door, and asks whether they are going inside with Auntie. Then Baeom comes over and says he and Jia are construction professionals, and Duwoon folds his arms and agrees that it turned out great. And he thinks about what comes next because now they can lift the curse off those two and get down to serious business. Then manager Kim runs up with his hand out saying they are already here, because he has just come back with materials and equipment from their world. Our boy asks whether Bong-soo has returned yet, since he would like to introduce him to Nari. Kim says he is at their place, the recovery is going well, and they have already started training. Duwoon nods and says good, then looks at the kneeling men and asks whether all that is left is sending them all back. First, manager Kim casts a silencing spell. Our boy handles the rest. Kim says understood, and Duwoon adds one condition. The spell should trigger even if they only think about telling somebody what happened here. Watching this, Ji-seok has an objection, because hold on, just a silencing spell? That technique is ancient. People worked out how to remove it a long time ago. Our boy tells him not to worry about it, because he is going to make it impossible to remove. Ji-seok asks whether that is even possible. Perfectly. Meanwhile, Park Woo-jong is staring at his desk, asking how dozens of A-rank hunters came home as D-rank hunters, and how exactly that happened, Mr. Ko Young-hyuk. Then he asks whether nobody has been able to strip the silencing spell off them, and whether anybody understands how absurd that is. And Young-hyuk, chairman of the Free Hunters Association, looks up and asks whether he remembers the silent spell incident 57 years ago, because it is happening again. Somebody sealed the mana with a spell, and it will not come off. Woo-jong sits with that, the same incident, 57 years ago. Then he says it seems to have something to do with Chairman Lee Un-soo, since the technique that director Han Myung-do was sealed with is also supposed to be obsolete, right? Because according to an insider, Chairman Un-soo appears to know whoever set fire to the TDA lab. Woo-jong decides that is nonsense, obsolete. They simply messed something up, or at least, that is how he chooses to read it. Although, maybe this is his chance to get rid of Un-soo. Then he says it cannot be helped, they are starting the slum cleanup project earlier than planned.